We'll rise. We'll have our opening prayer and flag salute.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity and pleasure of living and serving in the city of Newcastle. We pray your blessings upon our meeting tonight. Guide us in discernment and good judgment in all ways. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time I'll call the November 8th, 2021 meeting of the Newcastle Public Works Authority to order. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Carl Lamb.
Here.
Mike Fulton.
Here.
Tommy Clay, absent. Gene Reed.
Here.
Marcy.
Item number 2, discussion with possible action on approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion second for approval of the agenda.
Mike Fulton.
Yes.
Gene Reed.
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes. Carl Lamb.
Yes. Item number 3, citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for any citizen to comment on any matter related to the City of Newcastle Public Works that is not on the agenda. Remind any potential citizens who choose to comment that all speakers shall clearly state their name and address for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person with only one speaking opportunity. Board members will not respond to comments or questions. The chair may end the comment period at his discretion. Prior authorization is required for distribution of materials or to approach the board. Is there any public comment on the City of Newcastle Public Works? All right, seeing none, we'll move to item number 4, consent agenda. Are there any items any member of the board request to be removed and dealt with individually?
I have none.
Seeing none, item number 4, consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion second for approval of the consent agenda.
Mike Fulton.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Marcy White. Yes. Carl Lamb.
Yes. Item number 5, discussion of possible action on any items removed from the consent agenda. No action on that agenda item. Item number 6, discussion of possible action on utility account adjustments. Item 6A, account number 02-1131-00, and service address of 3818 North Country Club Road, Richard Smurd, continued from 9/13/21 and 10/12/21 meetings. Is Mr. Smurd a representative here this evening? Okay. Take no action on that. Request to be put back on the agenda. Item number 6B, account number 07-2169-000, and service address of 32 Morelandville Street, Anthony Lockhart. Mr. Lockhart, the representative present.
I am
Good evening.
asking for your mercy. Basically asking for a reduction in September and October water bills from $598 to, I took a yearly average of $170, and then $350.40 for October to $170.
Okay, did you have a leak?
We did. I had a high-tech plumbing, had a water leak, obviously had a really big bill, called high-tech. We thought we'd found it. Wasn't part of the plumbing. It was actually part of our sprinkler system, under a big, ball cypress tree, which just soaked up all the water. So got it fixed. I've got the letter if you guys need that. I think it was going to be in your packets, but it may not have been. So, but I've got, it's from Spring Rain, and high-tech plumbing. I can show you both of them.
There appears to be a third month that was high. Did you just mention 2 months?
August, I've already paid for. We'll just keep that. I wasn't asking for a reduction in that one. So.
All right, so have you provided the city with a copy of the repair bill?
I did. Yeah.
I don't have it.
Okay. I can show you. You can have them both. Type right.
Yes, yes, sir. I will make a motion that we adjust the the September and October bills to the average for 12 months. Motion second for utility bill adjustment.
Mike Fulton.
Yes.
Gene Reed.
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes. Carl Lamb.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you all very much.
Item number 7, discussion of possible action to approve the meeting date for calendar year 22.
I believe Camille put the calendar
She did.
in the packets.
Second Monday, except for October as normal.
Correct. The only other one in there is February 14th. I don't know if anybody wants to adjust that or not.
My husband says leave it the same.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed calendar.
Second.
2022.
Sorry.
Motion second for approval of meeting dates.
Mike Fuller.
Yes.
Gene Reed.
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes. Carmen.
Yes. I have a great monthly treasury.
This month, for our sales and use tax, I know last month I reported we had our highest monthly sales and use tax in September. But in October, it was actually $4,700 higher. So October is now our highest ever in a fiscal year, or ever in sales and use tax receipts. And that puts us 27% ahead of our monthly budget and 23% higher than we were estimated to be at this year. We're in October, it's our fourth month, so ideally we're at 33.3%. It's also 20% higher than this time last year. And that is our sales and use tax. Departments on the general fund side are all operating at or under the estimated percentage we expected them to be at this point. We do have a little higher execution in water operations and sewer operations. And that's simply because of the expensive repairs that we've had this year so far. And other than that, they're where they should be. Of the 9 vehicles that you all have previously approved to purchase, we've only had one come through and been paid for so far, so we're still waiting on the others. So we won't see that executed yet. The revenues are all running ahead, well ahead of the projected amounts we sales and use tax. We did try to budget conservatively, but we didn't go as conservatively as we have in the past, so things are looking good and lining up. Our total debt is down $342,000 from the same point last year. Our total debt right now is $3.8 million. And a quick sum of the fund balances, it's $3.6 million in general fund, $2.2 million in capital improvement, $38,000 in economic development, $60,000 in cemetery, $35,000 in parks capital improvement. We were finally able to get that playground installed and paid for. $1.4 million in the fire station fund, $68,000 in our admin and tech fund, and $955,000 in rent partial fund. On the PWA side, we have $2.7 million, $1.1 million in water impact, $1.2 million in sewer impact, and we have $2 million saved for the wastewater plant. And there was nothing unusual going on. So are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Great report. All right, item number 9, general manager's comments.
Just a couple of things that I want to mention to the board, just for your information. We have, the water department has been dealing with some issues over in the Windermere Addition and down in Fox Hollow related to water meters. When they're installed, the service lines that are coming to the water meters have been installed a little too high. Therefore, our water meters were installed too high, along with the canisters that fit over those. Our water department has taken care of that. Some of those, we actually installed the meters. Therefore, it's our responsibility to go back and lower those at this point. And then there's some others that developers will be taking care of for us. One other thing that I wanted to mention too, down at the Pedrist development on Southwest 16th, they were working on their front entrance, dug up our water main, didn't cause any damage. However, our assistant superintendent went down to take a look at it, and it's a old gray water pipe that was used whenever the line was put in. It's a 6-inch line that goes across there, so he gave me a call and said, you know, we need to do something at this point. Go ahead and increase the size, go ahead and replace it with PVC pipe, so we're doing that. That's a cost to the city. That doesn't have anything to do with supplying the developer or anything of that nature. It's simply repairing a water line that is substandard. So, but we already have pipe in the yard. The only thing it's costing us is for steel casing that the pipe will run through, which is about $5,000.
How long, what?
About 500 feet of line.
A good investment for the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're upsizing to 12 inch. So,
Okay.
Ain't gonna hurt the area anyway.
yes,
They will after.
that's all.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
Can I ask you? What's the effect if the line in the meter was installed when the one before too high? Like, what's that do? I don't know what that effect is.
Well, the actual canister that the meter sits in is actually sticking way above the ground.
Oh, okay.
So it shoves that up, and there are a couple of those, I believe, it's in the driveway.
I noticed those. I know what you're talking about. I've noticed those. So it's just, but, okay. I didn't know if like their water flow was slow or not pressure, but I know what you're talking about now. And I should know that one. Okay. I just clarifying.
We don't replace the question.
I know, right? Just remember the date and say, go back.
All right, item number 10, trustee comments.
Just say that we're blessed with these revenues currently, but we're also facing some remarkably big, investments in so much new things for our community, the water treatment and fire station, everything like that. So those are, I'm glad to have those. They're coming at a very good time. They have some very good application already mapped out on the city manager.
Yes, they
Yeah.
do.
It definitely put it all the use.
All right, any other comments? Item number 11 is adjournment.
Make a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Motion second for adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. This time I'll call the November 8th, 2021 meeting of the Newcastle City Council to order. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Ron Lamb.
Here.
Mike Fuller.
Here.
Tommy White. Absent. Gene Reed.
Here.
Marcy White.
Item number 2, discussion and possible action on approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second for approval of the agenda.
Mike Fuller.
Yes.
Gene Reed. Marcy White.
Item number 3, citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for any citizen to comment on any matter related to the city of Newcastle that is not on the agenda. Once again, all speakers shall clearly state their name and address for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person with only one speaking opportunity. Council members will not respond to comments or questions. The mayor may end comment period at his discretion, and prior authorization is required for distribution of materials or to approach the council. Any citizens' comments related to the city of Newcastle? Now, then please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
They want something that's on the agenda.
Well, it needs to be specifically on the agenda, or you can talk about it here. I believe yours is not specifically on the agenda. If-
Yeah. What they're wanting to talk about is a phase of an adult development that is not on.
Right, if it is a prior phase, not the final plat that we're looking at tonight, then you need to come up in public comment. If you're wanting to speak on strictly the final plat that is under consideration tonight, then you can wait till that period when we discuss the final plat. So if your comment, I believe that you're interested in the Windermere division, your comments aren't specifically to the final plat of phase 5, then you need to speak now. It is a plat that has not been any building in yet. It's a portion of the development with 0 houses.
Okay, so the issues we're having are prior to that being approved, so we need to speak now.
You would speak now, yes. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jennifer Lewis. Our address is 1001 Northwest First. And I guess, I've sent you guys all an email, so you should have like the detailed specifics of the kind of the issues we're having and the problems that we've had for 2 years now. So I'm not sure exactly when the beginning of the phases started, but the issues we started having were approximately January of 2020, so almost 2 years.
Pull the mic over in front of you just a little
Sorry.
bit, please. Thank you.
So once that phase started, the issues that we started having were the runoff, the silt encroachment, the fugitive dust coming across, and basically just getting to the issue of the fact that, I mean, we moved to Newcastle because it was a small town. That's what we wanted. And we both came from small towns, Texas. My husband, Gerald, is from Florida. So when we came out here wanting to start our family, raise our son out here in Newcastle, and so that was the intent. But knowing that, we came into it with, here's where we think Newcastle probably will be by the time he graduates, kind of that mindset, knowing it's going to grow, it's inevitable. We encourage that. I mean, my brother and his family are out here because we've encouraged them to come to Newcastle. I've got a coworker who moved out here for the same reason. That's not the issue, and it's not, you know, it's just the fact that we wanted to kind of put a face with the name, because, I mean, there's several of you up here that we know personally just in dealing with either football games. That's how I know Jean, and Marcy went to school with her at college. And so, you know, Mr. Fulgent, Gerald, you know, did Boy Scouts early on. Not sure why he was the leader, but he signed up for it. But I mean, it's that kind of thing, is just to see who it is instead of just the house on the corner that's having the issue. It's, you know, who it is you're talking about specifically. No problem. And I think our biggest concern is getting the problems that we're having fixed before that next plat is allowed to go ahead and get, you know, proceed, because as long as it's still moving and going forward, then once the developer's out, then what's our recourse? How do we remedy the situation if we're still having those issues? So that's like our biggest concern at this point. So other than, I mean, like, I don't have, you know, an actual progression of what needs to happen with that wall. I mean, just some of it is the fact that it stops 20 feet short of our property line to where that's where the runoff's coming, as opposed to continuing on and up and around the corner to where it'll stop it or hold it within that. So, I mean, the temporary fencing that's up there is temporary. I mean, it's that kind of thing that we're, you know, needing to have addressed or talk about as far as what's the next thing that needs to happen. And so, I mean, basically it's just, you know, we haven't been here every single meeting because the job that I do as an insurance adjuster is the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We don't want to be those people because we have to deal with those people all day long. It's not fun, and it's not fun for you. And we know you have a job to do, but, you know, we would hope that because we're still going to be the ones here in town when it's all said and done, not necessarily a developer that's come in to make money and leave. We're still contributing to this community that way. So we would hope that would be something that would be taken into consideration when you guys make your decisions that way. And then I still have intention to put up, I've got a million pictures and videos and everything of everything that we've done. So I'll resend an email out with the link and everything once I get set up. So you'll have that information as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just a question, based on what she's referring to, would that be applicable to what we're looking at on the bottom?
No, her location would not be related to Windermere 5.
Okay, very good. Okay, so at this point in time, since it's not on the agenda, we're not able to comment back and forth. So, why I was asking that.
I have something to add to that, if possible.
Is it based on?
I live in the same area, same neighborhood.
Okay. Yep.
Hello. My name is Julie Wickersham. I live at 1302 Northwest 1st Street, and I have been in contact by email with the council about my concerns about the Windermere development. I am very concerned. We were told that sod will be laid to help prevent water damage to our property. I do not believe that the sod will be enough protection. Some of the people on the east side of our neighborhood are still having water issues even after the sod was laid. and that would be the Lewises and others. I believe that a retaining wall that is high enough would also help and make it a more permanent fix. I believe at this point, the dirt hill north of our house, our property, is steeper than the one that is behind the houses on the north side of First Street. In fact, they are out there right now building it even higher. Rain is expected Wednesday and Thursday. No sod or wall is in place to protect us. I also want to bring up that in the last council meeting, it was mentioned that the small concrete wall that goes all the way down to the end of the north side of First Street, but it doesn't. The last two houses on the west side of the north side of First Street do not have a wall. And this is a wall that is like this high. I do not believe the wall is tall enough to truly protect against the water damage. My concerns are, these are the homes that we have worked and paid for, our livelihoods. This is where we plan to retire and live out the rest of our lives. And now, daily, we watch the machines plow up the dirt beside our home. I'm concerned. I don't want to, after the fact, whenever the developer is done and gone, and we have no recourse to the damage to our homes. If there could be a fix now, taken care of now, to be greatly appreciated. I also want to know, is there an engineering plan available for us to view?
Like I said, we cannot, during this period of time, since you're commenting not on the agenda, we're not allowed to provide back and forth. However, based on what the city manager says, it appears that your property is adjacent to the plat that's going to be talked about later this evening. So at that point in time, you can come back up and make public comments concerning that plat. At that point in time, since it is on the agenda, there can be some back and forth with council.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, which one is that on here?
Item 7C.
All right. Okay, thank you for your time.
Any other public comment? All right. Seeing none, we'll move to item number 4, consent agenda. Is there any item any member of council would desire to be removed from the consent agenda and addressed individually?
I would love to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Motion second for approval of the consent agenda.
Mike Wilson.
Yes.
Jay Reed,
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes. Brian Hill.
Yes. Item number 5, discussion of possible action on the item removed from the consent agenda. Be no action on that agenda item. Item number 6, discussion of possible actions on approval of the amount of 5% for professional services fee agreement with Lingo Construction Services, Inc., Oklahoma City, for construction, supervision, and administration of new fire station project. There was an error in the agenda that included engineering and design. It is not inclusive of engineering and design. It's inclusive of construction, supervision, and administration of new fire station.
And staff met with Guernsey Engineering and Lingo Construction last week, and basically their percentage fee for these services is 5%. There is a representative here from Lingo that can answer any questions that council may have.
Good evening. I'm JP with Lingo Construction. Any questions?
I think we talked about this before. This is one we said that they supervise all the pieces and or that's the one we talked about last time.
That's correct. If they have, for the concrete work, they will get 3 bids
Okay.
for each piece of the construction.
They're just overseeing.
That's correct.
So this item is for the amount of services for to approve the contract.
To approve the agreement, there are 5% charge on this, which that depends on total cost of the project.
which was the 3-page, 7-page contract that was sent to us.
Yes, that was sent today, I believe.
And we trust that has gone through all the eyes of staff and council.
Yes, and also I'm sure Guernsey has looked at that as well.
I have no more questions on that.
Any public comment concerning this agenda item? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve, item 6, which is the approval of the professional services fee agreement with Lingo.
Motion second for approval of item number 6.
Mike Paul,
Yes.
Jim
Yes.
Marcy White, Carl Nell.
Yes. Item number 7, planning commission recommendations. Item 7A, public hearing, discussion, and possible action. An approval of application for rezoning from CN1 neighborhood shopping district to TP planning development for Riverview Estates for R&R land development. Clark, property located in the southwest border of section 33, township 10 north, range 4 west, in Meridian, Plain County, Oklahoma, and for adoption ordinance number 894. Property address, southwest border, section 33, township 10 north, range 4 west, Plain County, Oklahoma, Newcastle, Oklahoma, case number R2021-010.
Good evening, council members. As you stated, this is a rezoning for Riverview Estates mixed-use development. This is the HUD area here outlined in red. And as you can see, according to the zoning map, this is Riverview Estates Section 1 and 2 to the north that is zoned E3. This is currently CN1 and also estates on the west and on the east side with commercial zoning as well. And on the south side, also commercial and some ag along 37. So this is a request to that the PUD will be regulated by the E3 Urban Residential District, and commercial district will be regulated by the CC2 Community Commercial District. The applicant is requesting 5 amendments to that the ordinance. One would be to increase the maximum block length from 1,000 to 3,100 feet, reduce the front setback from 35 to 25, reducing side setback from 20 to 10, and the rear setback from 25 to 15, and reducing the minimum lot area from 27,000 square feet to 21,780. The residential lots will be serviced by individual septic systems, and the commercial portion will extend the existing sanitary sewer from the east to the commercial portion, and there will be a lift station involved. Planning staff does support and recommend approval of R 2021-014. Planning Commission did recommend approval. They did have several comments that I would like to bring up here. And our responses to those comments. So this is the staff report that is in your packet regarding the PUD. And there was just a few comments that the Planning Commission comments were adding additional commercial access on Highway 37, limits of no access between all approved access points onto Highway 37. East and West streets shall be numbered streets. Include Delta Public Transit, no truck access on existing Riverfront Drive exit. Include a lighting ordinance for illumination requirements, and requiring a 50-foot right-of-way along the section line west of the development, plus the 16.5-foot statutory right-of-way on section lines, and to develop North Rockwell Road for additional access for the commercial portion of the development. And the following are our staff responses to those comments. There was quite a lengthy discussion, and so this is what we have determined from that. Additional access to 37 is really determined by ODOT with required separation, so they are the ones that approve that. The existing roads, Deerfield Drive and Northwest 33rd, provide required access and circulation throughout this HUD and the preliminary plat. through the commercial portion of the development. The developer will provide during building permit process, showing circulation through those commercial lots as they start to come in for a building permit. So that'll be something that we review for each individual permit as they come forward to develop that area. Therefore, we don't think that they need another access onto 37. There was some debate. Some people are no access, some people say access. Our thought and good principle planning design is to try to get circulation throughout the development with as few curb cuts onto 37 as possible. We also don't want to put a limit to no access on the plat, because just across of that on the south side of 37, the Willow Springs edition, there was limit to no access placed there. And so to take that off a plat, you have to vacate the plat. And so really it's up to ODOT and the developer and then planning staff to determine that as far as circulation through that. So putting that on the plat really isn't something that is necessary. The easterly streets and westerly should, much as possible, be numbered according to our ordinance. However, because 37 is actually 32nd, the next street in Riverview, section 1 and 2, is 34, so it only leaves 33. So it would make us have to do a 33rd Street Terrace and a 33rd Street Place. We don't feel like that is, well, it makes it hard for emergency responders. It's confusing. And so we want to let them go ahead and stick with the named streets instead of the numbered streets on the east-west bound streets. And I can go into more detail on that plat to show you what I'm talking about when we get to that. Delta Transit is an on-demand service geared towards serving senior citizens. It's not really a public transportation that we have planned routes where people can say, know that there's a pickup at 62 and 10th Street every hour. And so I just wanted to make that clear as far as we can put that in the PUD that there is Delta Transit available, but it's a on-demand service that really caters towards more senior citizens for McLean and Garvin counties. Trucks can exit on Riverfront Drive. It is an exit only. It's a collector road and it butts commercial lots, so we believe that that's not required. The light ordinance is included in the PUD, and the 16.5-foot right of way along the section line west of this development of the commercial portion is noted and will be on the preliminary plat. But however, the developer, according to our regulations, does not have to develop that because they're providing the adequate streets according to chapter 153.046 of our subdivision regulations. So I just wanted to go through a couple of those items to let you know that that was the discussion. I can show you on, let me go down to the preliminary plat so I can show you what I'm talking about on the numbered streets versus the named streets. So, and I wish I could blow this up here a little bit. So both of this is, I think it's McLean, which street is it? And then Garvin. These streets, according to our ordinance, are supposed to be numbered streets. But because this is 32nd, 37, Highway 37, the next street that got, when we did the plat for 1 and 2, they got the assignment of 34. So that was the next block up. So it only leaves 33 or 33 and a half to do these two east-westbound streets. So we suggest going ahead and leaving them named streets instead of doing 33rd Place Terrace and then here 33rd Place Park Place. That's our suggestion, and we can work out those details, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that as
I'd
well.
like to make a comment on it since you brought up emergency service.
Yes, sir.
It would actually be more confusing to leave those as named streets.
Okay.
For fire and police, because everything in the citywide here in Newcastle, everything east and west is numbered.
Mm-hmm.
Everything north and south is named streets.
Correct.
So it's going to be more confusing.
I
I
see what you're
promise
saying.
you that, and we already have We
We
have
do.
this issue in other parts, like in Bradford, we have a 23rd place, we have 23rd terrace. I mean, so it's really not that big of a deal.
Meadow Creek, is that why you did that? Because it's 17th, 117th and
17th
17th.
place, correct.
Oh, I
Okay, so it is, okay, well, that was my thinking through this, and I thank you for your input, and that will definitely, I can understand that. In the future, though, this hopefully won't continue to be an issue when we develop further, and we will number them correctly, so we're not coming up and having to do this. Okay, I appreciate that clarification. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions from council members.
I'll ask about the setbacks. What did the planning commission, what was their discussion and how they come down on reduced setbacks?
There really was not any comments about setbacks regarding this development.
It's a fairly big reduction. However, it seems pretty consistent with what we've been seeing recently too. So is that consistent? Those proposed setbacks, is that consistent with what we're comfortable with now in terms of the 10 to 15 feet?
And what we've had several go to board of adjustment get changed to that.
Just do that.
And what we found is there's lots of desire amongst people on half-acre lots to have those smaller setbacks.
I just want to add, and then Gordon, of course, you can make a comment, is that it just allows a little bit more flexibility, as we've seen before with the side load garages, and the 20 feet is a pretty big setback for that big of a lot. Going down to 10 allows a little bit more flexibility with that. And we have approved this in other PUDs. Oakmont went forward and amended their PUD, and it was approved. Yes, sir.
That's what I was.
That, and that's what I was here to say, is this is consistent with what we've been doing in recent, the trend we're seeing with the half-acre lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One comment I might have about the 50-foot right away, I understand based on looking at the preliminary plat that it would be pretty impactful to the residential portion, but it's been our history that we've required 50 foot along section line roads. I wouldn't be so much interested in messing with the residential portion, but I don't know that it would hurt to require the 50 foot on the commercial portion that goes down to Highway 37. That it would be consistent with what we've been doing in the past. We don't know how the land to the west may potentially develop out in the future that may need a wider access point through there eventually.
Yes, and I'll look back, but I believe that I said that. If I didn't, I apologize. But they will put that on the preliminary plat, the 50-foot right-of-way adjacent to the commercial portion with the 16.5-foot statutory right-of-way. But it won't be developed.
Right.
Correct.
And that's what the planning commission asked for, was on the commercial, and at the residential, we recognized that we didn't do it on the northern portion, and that the council and the recent adoption and amendment to that setback requirement or that easement requirement provided that when it made no sense, we wouldn't get it.
Right.
And at that stage,
One more question, Janae, I don't want to belabor this, but I'm just curious, I missed your initial comment perhaps, but when did the topic of Delta Transit come up?
It was brought up during planning commission, and I just think it's something that a lot of times in PUDs, they mention any type of public transportation services that are available, and so it's something that's generally put into PUDs to acknowledge that. This one didn't have it, and so our chair suggested that it would be in there, and we are going to put it in there. I just wanted to make sure that people understood that this was a on-demand service, that it wasn't, I didn't want to have the PUD state something that wasn't true to what exactly the service is offering. Yes,
if
sir.
I could, the PUD actually has a paragraph in it that says there's no bus service available. And I just suggested we put that the Delta was available.
Started the practice.
And Janae is correct. We ought to put in there that it's a on-demand service or something like that, but we pay for the service and it is here, and so I
Yeah.
thought, stick it in.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the council? All right, is there any public comment concerning this agenda item? All right. Now, we entertain a motion, and the motion would need to have recommendations from staff, with the exception of the numbering or naming of the two east-west streets. And I will also make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion second for approval of item number 7A.
Mike Fullerton,
Yes.
Jean
Yes.
Marcy White, Carl Nell.
Yes. Item number 7B, discussion of possible action on adoption of the emergency clause, ordinance number 894.
Motion to approve agenda item 7, ordinance number 8, so emergency clause ordinance 94. I'm sorry.
I'll second that.
Motion second for approval of item number 7B.
Mike Fullerton,
Yes.
Jean Reed,
Yes.
Marcy White, Carl Nell.
Yes. Item number 7C, discussion of possible action on approval of the final plat of Windermere Phase 5, continued from October 12, 2021, city council meeting.
As you stated, this is a final plat for Windermere Phase 5 that was continued by council last month. Since that time, staff and city engineer and the developer have met on site. We went through several renditions of looking at how what they've done so far on 4. We're talking about, we met on 4 and we met at 5 concerning erosion, sediment, and erosion control measures and grading and paving and drainage. The retaining wall is in place on section 4. They have gone out and sodded. They have added fill in, and they also have been working on the far east lot, which is lot 5, that's abutting a DE drainage easement. And they have gone in and also updated and done the silt fencing to prevent some more sediment control. I've been in constant contact with the developer. Some of the citizens replied to their emails. Our city engineer also made some suggestions that I would let him speak to as far as erosion control, and as those lots are developed in that phase 4 that are north of First Street that abut the backyards there, putting up the fences that will be put up when they come forward for building permit will help. No, it is not a permanent fix for that, but I think that the developer is making good effort in following the plans that are approved in Windermere 4, that they are following those plans. We've had several of our inspectors on site to make sure that those are being followed. And with that, with our city engineer comments on further, any further recommendations for phase 5, it's meeting all the requirements. So staff and city engineer does recommend approval of the final plat for Windermere Section 5.
So we are tying, well, your comments tied back to the original concerns expressed earlier.
No.
right?
No, so when this came forward, and I believe, sir, that you were not at that meeting, this,
I observed it last month, so, but I wasn't here, you're right.
yes, so what happened was this came forward and there was some additional concerns about what was happening in a previous section.
Right.
So is what we did was to make sure and address council's concerns regarding that section as well as section 5. Section 5, they have their, the construction entrance is all gravelled. They've gone in, they've redone the silt fences, they are bringing in dirt and doing their paving and drainage, but they do have their stormwater discharge permit allowing them to move dirt. And so that's what they're doing right now in section 5.
Now, Kenny, you've been on site?
Have been on site. We have seen this. Most of the problems from previous phases, in my opinion, could have been avoided if they had properly maintained the erosion control that they had. There was a few things that weren't in 4 that hopefully we're, on the verge of getting it fixed, but the most of it is those steep slopes, you got to have them sodded. And as soon as you're done doing dirt work, you got to get seeding down on the flat areas. That's our big thing. This next phase, they've got most of the dirt work in. There's a flat area down at the bottom. So I'm confident they've got a little better shot at keeping their mud on their property. But it all boils down to maintaining everything. So city staff needs to stay on them, developer needs to stay on them, contractor needs to stay on it. And hopefully we can avoid, what's happened in the past.
Now, have they started the areas there that they've completed their work on?
I have not been out there since the middle of last week.
I've driven out there last week.
If they're doing dirt work, it doesn't do any good, but just as soon as that dirt work's done, they have got to, and they've got to have erosion control up before that. They've got to have and maintain silt fences, but as soon as those slopes are done, we've got to get them sodded. And not just up close to the top, it's got to come up and over the lip. And then the rest of it seeded just as soon as we get it all graded.
They do that good silt fencing.
Okay. And as you've taken a look at the entire drainage for where it hooks into 5 and all of that, are you confident that the measures put in place now will resolve the issues that we've had on not just 5 going in, but where it connects to 4?
I think the developer and his engineer have a good plan on 4. We've got what we've got out there right now, but eventually we will have a stockade privacy fence built right next to that concrete wall to help hold the slope back, hold the water back. I think, that's what they proposed, and I think it'll do a pretty good job. But again, it's not a, let's install sod and we're done. It's got to be maintained. That's our whole problem. Everything's got to be maintained out there. Every time there's a big rain, half-inch rain, it needs to be inspected and repaired. And that's not just this job. That's common sense on every construction job, isn't it, Mike?
Yes, sir.
So.
But Mayor, my concern, go ahead.
Well, now on the retaining wall that's there, and any retaining wall on any development like that, if it over time, 5-10 years from now, if that eventually was to silt in or fill up and then start overtopping that wall, what's the answer to that issue?
Now you've got a couple of choices. You can dig it back out. Again, stuff silts in. My patio, when I first poured it 20 years ago, had a 6-inch step down into the yard. Now it holds water.
Who would dig it up then? Who would?
That would either be the homeowner or the homeowners association, depending on if there's a drainage easement.
I'm really concerned that our patrons, our citizens who live there,
Yep.
we all agree that you hope and you wish and you have to maintain, but I think we've let them down for so long with hoping that it would be right. And I no offense on you using the term because we use it here too. Hopefully it will be,
Right.
the developer will really do enough. But I don't think if our citizens had raised all these concerns, nothing would have caught our eyes
Right.
except when they have a full of mud. And the developer, I don't know if the developer has a propensity to go out there and check it ahead of time. I just.
Well, it doesn't pay to go check it,
Right.
until
But
someone complains.
It costs if you don't.
You're exactly right, and it will silt in. Even if you catch your grass every single time, eventually your yard slowly gets higher and higher. It's going to happen.
The big buildup of dirt, however many feet, they're different amounts. It looks pretty high to me.
Yeah.
Does it cause water to run the other direction? Or, in other words, is the grade there that water up on that upper level will flow away from the homes?
I think from about the midpoint of the house, the backyards will still flow back. But previously, there was, from 300-400 feet further north came back.
Yeah, in the grass field.
Yeah, in the grass
Yeah,
field.
but there
Yeah,
were-
there is still I believe the backyards are still graded to drain back toward the south.
So I have a question about that. If it goes back towards the south, previously, at least in one section, there's a big easement where it came down the middle. Now nothing goes there. Where is it, an engineering spec that we can look at that shows how that's being directed, and how the wall comes into play, how the slope comes into play?
The grading plan
how-
shows them trying to reestablish sheet flow. Because again, that was all pasture. And eventually there really isn't any defined channels out there. There is kind of a low spot that you're talking about that's an easement.
It used to, but it doesn't now in a couple of places.
Yeah, they're really, so what the developer's engineer tried to do was reestablish sheet flow.
But it
To a
really does
lesser
look
amount.
like they channeled it only so far, and it does look like it appears it would go right down to 1/3 of our citizens' property, the eastern third of theirs, because that wall stopped right there, and it looks like there's no other place for that. There's nothing that looks like it would channel that water any further east.
It keeps it directed
Yeah.
until it goes,
It looks
you
like
know,
it-
Looks
Yeah,
like
I haven't shot it, so I
It
don't,
went from a sheet flow to an outlet, basically,
yeah.
at the end of the wall.
Well, I think when that older neighborhood was developed, though, that's what I'm saying, they developed channels in the older neighborhood for anything that came off the field. And there were channels, and it did go through the channels. Now there are no channels, and it's just going, as soon as the wall stops, it's going helter-skelter everywhere and over and all. So
Okay.
that's why I guess I'm asking is, does the engineering spec show that how it's supposed to channel through there? Or does there need to be another one that says, we got to
Yeah.
rework this?
The original grading plan just showed it, sheet flowing
Okay.
straight back.
And when we say
straight that
that's
way.
not working, do we ask for a new one?
Well, I think we have to be very careful here too, that we don't get too far off into Windermere 4, when this is Windermere 5. That's on the
Well,
agenda.
there's build up on the far west end too.
And I understand that.
Is it the same developer?
Same developer. And the developer is here tonight to respond to anything. I will say on the pad sites in Windermere 4, those have a slope from back to front toward the street. And I was told on site out there with the developer and his engineer that they have a 12-inch fall from back to front toward the street. Everything where it breaks over on that slope, of course, goes south, which is about 20 to 30 feet long, 3-to-1 slope, going toward the south. The developer's position on this, and the engineer for the developer, is that they have not put any more water onto those properties than historically was there in the first place, if I'm saying that correct. Of course, and I don't want to speak for you, Kenny, but Kenny's concern here is velocity,
Yeah,
the change in velocity from the slopes of what that's created.
We all discussed that a few years ago, that the question wasn't would no water flow, but would any additional water flow? Because there was runoff off the pasture.
Right.
But we assured the citizens that no additional water would come. Well, that may help some, but we've got at least one who's getting more water. Looks like a lot of water comes from their
Channeled
property.
differently.
Yeah, because it's channeled to their property.
Well, and that's my argument is the path has changed
Yeah.
compared to what it used to be. Not necessarily that there's any more water, because there's not. And when you think about the pad sites that they have created and everything flowing back toward the roadways, that's taking water away from flowing south. That's actually pushing water back to the north. So it is the same, more or less, than what historically flowed, but the path is different.
So again, I go back to, but the way it's channeled and where it's channeled to is, I think, I can't say like no one's taking collection numbers on if there's more or less. So, but what I do know is it's channeled differently, and it's channeled in a very ineffective way that's affecting these people, and I'm here to speak for them. So I'm not okay with it.
okay.
And what's potentially going with 5 is there's buildup again. So I'm like, great, with 4, we've had these issues now. We're heading down the same path with 5, and 4's not fixed.
And so you've looked at the drainage plans for 5, correct?
We have looked at the drainage plans and it meets subdivision requirements. There's less water. Is there these slopes? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Again, my big stance in this is, if they had kept all the silt, whether it's 4 or 5, if they keep all the silt in place on their property, people will be a lot happier.
And if they don't,
Then they've got to fix it.
so what do we have in place that they will?
Well, we've got, I think, and Janae can treat this better than me, we've got a lot more things in place on oversight during the construction and before they get a final inspection and can start selling lots and stuff. To be honest, we really didn't have that in place very well.
And then
In
one
the
more
earlier
thing,
phases.
there are 2 elements there. There's the water flow, and then there's the acute concern for mud right now. that
Right.
Without sod,
Yes,
that these people that even sort of just water, there's mud gonna be flowing over, they're afraid.
right.
And that looks like a real, that looks like that's just a fact of life.
Right.
If that sod didn't get,
There's 2 standards of the industry. One is how you calculate the runoff. And the engineer has done it all by standard of the industry, cutting the drainage area. Okay, even though instead of pasture, it's going to be yards and streets, that's taken into account. They've cut the area down. So the overall flow coming off of this, and no 2 rainstorms are the same. We all know that. So you have to have a standardized process on how to evaluate something. They have passed muster, so to speak, on that. The big thing in my book is, and I don't want to make light of people who say, well, there's more runoff or it's faster and all that, but my big thing is I'd like to keep the dirt where it belongs. Keep the silt out of people's yards. Keep it off their patios. Keep it from going around. Both. The silt fence, it's not 100%. There's going to be problems, but it'll sure help if we get out there and we check it after every rain event, because that stuff does silt up. It gets a weak spot, a hole gets underneath it, and then it's no good. It's got to be well maintained. Just as soon as dirt work is finished, and it's in every single plan. DEQ requires it. They just do not have the manpower to enforce it. So, we've got to have city staff, including me, keep an eye on this stuff, because it's generally accepted that if you're not going to be on it, even if you're not done with dirt work, if you're not going to be on it for 14 days, you got to do temporary seeding. Get some ryegrass out there, something to start holding that slope.
then they will phase 5 have some similar,
Issues?
will phase 5 have, we're looking at phase 5 now. Will there be some similar characteristics of that development with regard to the houses south of it?
It should not. It should not, and I think Kenny spoke to it very well. We have more eyes on it. Our utilities superintendent, Mr. Miller, myself, our inspectors. I call Kenny out now for inspections, and we're looking at these things through the phases of development. Also, what we do have in place is our maintenance bonds after we accept these improvements. Paving and drainage and water and sewer, those are all, if we ever notice at any one time, we can say, hey, this isn't functioning the proper way that according to plan, and we can go back and have them remediate that as well.
And I didn't ask my question very clearly.
Oh,
What I
sorry.
meant is there a similar characteristic in terms of height of the buildup to any homes? Because it looked like our previous phase went almost the entire distance of those 10 homes on the north side of First Street.
Well, we've got some from west to east, where they're building it to the west.
Yeah.
And houses to the east, there is a pretty good slope.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We were out there and looked at it. That's what I was talking about, is there is a bit of a flat area that they've left in there. I don't know if that's getting filled in or not, but they had a good silt fence in there, and they were doing dirt work the last time I was out there. But I just can't stress enough that we've got to get them to sod the thing. Even if it's the middle of winter, it helps with impact erosion erosion. When it rains, even if it's dead grass that's on there, it keeps it from washing that slope off.
It's almost like we've got some incentive as we're looking to approve other things. I don't know how valid that is. Sounds like it's not going to be valid to other people, but it sounds like that's, right now is the time to get some real commitments, and maybe the commitments are right. But you said we've got to get them to, I don't know what our leverage is, to make that happen in the future if it doesn't happen.
I agree, and my thought is, I hear what you're saying, Kitty, and Janae, we have more things in place, I agree. I mean, it's evidenced by a lot of the things you put in place that you've done, Janae, but phase 4 is still not right. So that's my hang-up with it. Phase 4 is still not right. It's hard for me to hear that we're gonna have it right in phase 5. I can't reconcile myself with that.
I will say that, in 4, though we're on phase 5 right now, that, a lot of those erosion control, measures were not in place when those backyards were experiencing a lot of the mud and runoff. There was not the sod in place. There was not the seeding. The grading wasn't there. So they have since gone back and remediated that. When we were there, I could see a little bit of, and Mr. Meek, he agreed, there was some beveling in the sod where you could see where the water had washed underneath the sod and had gone over the wall. And he agreed. Those are places that it needed to be fixed. You know, it needs to be more contact. The sod has to come over that crest at the top more. So, and they were out there trying to, a week ago Friday, I believe, they were out there on site.
I will say too, that when we were out there on the site, meeting with the developer, his engineer, all of us, I spoke with 2 property owners there that abuts that on Northwest First, and asked them, was there any impact at all after that sod was laid? Because rainstorm was coming in, and they got that laid prior to the rain. And I was told, no, there wasn't. There was no water that came over the top of the wall. There was no mud. There was nothing. After, now that's now, you know, and the issue that is being discussed right now is, will it silt in and then top the wall?
It will silt in, but I think the privacy fence built butting up to the inside of that wall will help that. What's it gonna have to go through? It's gotta go through the little slats and the pickets.
I don't know, so you have the answer, but is stockade an erosion control methodology? Like, I don't.
That's the first time I've ever heard of it.
No, that's what we're doing on a permanent
measure.
measure, to be honest. We're doing that on a permanent measure when that wall does, I mean, that wall is, you know, anywhere from 6 inches to a foot above. It's gonna silt in. That's why we want that stockade fence.
That's why I think every one of us has been questioning what's gonna happen once that silt's in. How are we gonna maintain it? How are the homeowners with the homeowners association gonna maintain that? Is there even a space for equipment to even get in there to maintain that?
I don't know the size of that drainage easement, to be
And
honest.
what's the average what's the lifetime of the stockade fence?
10, well, it depends on what it's made out of.
Yeah, it depends on what it's made. I
And how
mean,
it's treated.
Once it's planted in dirt with water.
yep.
It's gonna rot out fast.
I'm afraid it's just gonna fail.
Well, you know, if they've got a dog, hopefully they would keep their fence repaired,
Well,
or
yeah, but
the
No,
dogs.
but this is down
No.
there by the wall. This is down there
Yeah.
by concrete. No, none of those homeowners are gonna be down in that, are they?
there'll also go down there, won't they?
Yeah,
Yeah, the
this is
lots
the
will,
back, this is the back of the lots.
and the
He's
fence,
planning on putting the fence in. I wanted it in immediately. I think he decided to put it in when he builds them.
correct.
Oh, up on top at the back.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but that
And
fence-
then down there will be a fence. It'll be
No, there's
right there
actually-
butting up to the concrete wall.
Yeah, it'll sit right on the stockade fence will
can't-
sit right on the
I mean,
inside.
we talked about backing it off, but then you've got a no man's land that no one's gonna do anything with.
Yeah, so it'll be open yard. all
So
the
we
way
put
back.
it, we want it right there against that concrete,
Now, you're talking about the top of the wall.
Along the
at the
top.
top, inside the top of the wall, at the top.
Inside.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the button
not on the
next to
wall, not on the wall.
So we
That's
took-
all.
okay. What about the,
6 or 7 feet higher.
let me go back. What about the no man's land that's in between that wall and these people's fences?
Well, that's always the homeowners.
Yeah,
Yeah, but there's like a foot or two that's a gap, and They're supposed to maintain that. How are they supposed to maintain that?
Whoever's property is supposed to maintain it.
But you see what I'm getting at?
If-
I do
if
see
I'm-
what you're saying.
If I'm on the low end, I'm taking
Unless
out
they're
that
very good
other
neighbors with the
fence.
neighbors behind them.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
exactly is what the
That's
option
what I would
is.
do.
What it did is
I would
it,
take out the chain link and
you have it to the wall.
and take it to the wall. That's what I would do, and claim it.
And this is just, for any situation like this, whether it be 5 or whatever, and you've got a heavy slope like that, what is the typical best manner to manage that water runoff?
Sod.
Sod, but in this instance where it's coming down onto those yards, where we've got a wall there, is that the best thing that could have been done? Is that, would it have been better to have a higher wall or some type of terrace system to catch that water and channel it all somewhere? Or, I'm just
Probably
curious.
would. I
For the
mean,
future.
hindsight's always,
Sure.
it would have been better to capture it all and take it, either east or west.
Is that a hard thing to do at this point?
I would think so. You've already got a concrete wall sitting in
So, okay, so currently the water that's coming down the slopes right now hits the wall and either goes to the east or goes to the west,
there, or ponds up and
or
spills
ponds up and goes over the top.
Yeah.
Somewhere along that line, somebody's getting extra water on the property that they didn't have previously.
That's not true.
It makes its own channel if you don't make a channel.
Yeah, I mean, all I can tell
I mean,
you
do we have engineering plans that show differently?
yeah, we got a drainage report that shows different.
On this hitting the wall and going somewhere?
Well, on the total amount of flow going that way. Now then, if it hits and it goes around and all of a sudden it's concentrated, yes, we could have more going around an end.
Which I
Definitely
think is what's
could.
happening with that wall, and is what I'm hearing, where the wall, and that's where it's going out. Not, there is some going over, I think, but it's,
Nothing's going over.
the wall could be shorter, the wall could be longer or higher. And then it can be channeled into a different direction.
Right.
You guys keep saying it's doing it, but it's not.
You have to
It's
take your
not.
name.
I'm Tony Meek. I'm the developer. Since that wall, before even we put sod on it, it has not gone over that wall, has not gone around that wall, except where erosion control wasn't in place. The erosion control with the silk fence has been in place. The original topo of that entire property, before we even developed it, showed watershed throughout that entire place. We have not added more than historical data. What had occurred the first time I knew about it, and we don't drive every development we have to see. We knew the plans were approved. I knew there was a water issue when Kevin called me and said, hey, there's a big drop on this side of the property. You need to go look at it. We met out there. We determined, well, and again, these are approved plans. It's already been built. It shows that slope on the plans. Y'all have approved it. The city's approved it. And even with the approval, hold on, even with the approval, I told Kevin, well, we'll put a wall up there and we'll try to stop some of it. You have houses in that neighborhood that have pools that are 3 feet above their backyard because they've always had water coming into that property. The channel that you're referring to, Marcy, was not a channel that these farmers magically directed water towards there. It all flowed, sheet flow from historical data, from topos show it shed right onto everyone else's property. When we had the water problem, we did not have any wall, and we had 3/4, if not more, of all those lots fall straight back towards it. Nothing stopped it, no erosion control. We missed the contractor, didn't have the silt fence up like it should have been, et cetera, et cetera. We've taken those lots, we've added a retaining wall, and we've taken 2/3 of that water that was directed towards that, because midway about where the house would sit, it all fell to the south. We've now redone every one of those lots. It has a crown at the very top of their backyard where it all now falls to the front of the property, besides about a 15 to 20 foot section that flows towards the back of the property, hits a wall. When that happened, we had a gap between getting sod, which, every time it rains, they can't cut sod. We had rainstorms. We've had numerous rainstorms since that wall. It's not going over that wall.
We purposely made sure the dirt is 6 inches below that wall in most areas. So it has the 10+ years of silting in. Once sod's in, we've gone out there after it's rained with the sod in. It's not falling over the water. We've kept up the erosion control. But the point is, we're not putting more than historical data. We've always had issues from day one with the property owners here. And they can't show me. You can't just keep saying it's not fixed. Well, show me where we're putting more than what it has been before.
Right here.
Because Jennifer Lewis has about 200 pictures probably. I don't know how many.
It was taken October
She's
28th
got
this
dates on
year.
all her pictures.
No, I can't.
This is, okay, let me back up a bit.
The silt fence?
Yes. This is where we got the wall.
Yeah.
Okay, following it. See right there? That's that location, where all your silt is landed.
And you got the silt fence that was reestablished.
That's also
around there.
blown
And
out.
we're fixing to sod it. No, it's been reestablished and we're fixing to sod it.
Because there's blowout.
Right, silt fence does that. Talk
Right.
to any erosion control.
So what you're telling me?
They
though,
have to
is
go back and
Water's not going
reestablish.
that direction.
No, I didn't say that.
Well,
Water's going that direction. It
okay, the
historically
question
has
is how
gone that
much water's
direction.
going that direction?
No more than historical.
No.
No more historical going sheet flow, or no more historical going channel flow?
Sheet flow.
Because
Look at the topo, guys. You've had
how
it.
I see that retaining wall is acting like a channel, holding that water going one way or the other.
No, it still flows. And again, this is phase 4.
Yeah.
We're talking
We
about,
really need to move on, and we've probably delved off into phase 4 way more than we should have. If need be, we can make this an agenda item on a future council agenda and invite Mr. Meek back
Yeah.
for discussion. And he can bring his engineer at that time if he so chooses. But we're going to concentrate on the final plat of phase 5, and limit comments from this point forward to phase 5 only. And we'll get to public comment here in a minute. I understand that. We'll open public comment in a moment.
I just wanted to add one thing, that I was discussing with planning staff, along this boundary here, that we are going to make sure it has the UE denoted, but we want the DE noted as well here along this section.
What's that mean?
Drainage easement with the UE. We're gonna make that recommendation. Do you concur?
No.
Thank you, sir.
And other than that, on the review of planning commission, were there any comments, planning commission concerning phase 5?
It didn't come back to planning.
Oh, it didn't come up.
Oh, yeah.
You had our comments before.
Oh, that's before you.
And I would just note that we did discuss when we did that, in drainage, what we're seeing is a real problem is the concentrated flow. You may not have more flow, but you concentrate. And we've seen that in several additions. And this addition, as where we paid attention to it, was in their retention pond, bringing the outlet back in on the property and letting it spread out again for sheet flow before it gets to the property. As far as coming on back around the backside there, we really didn't address anything there. I would note that the grading, we did, actually, the planning commission didn't see the grading plats and the drainage plats, but we did a plat review. And the concept of trying to bring the water, the sheet flow back into the streets and collect it is on the drainage design. So there's probably less concentrated or less total flow, but there's still flow and it's concentrated. And I don't know the sure for
I think the fact that we're sloping those lots, everything north of where it goes with the 3-1 slope towards the north itself. So, any more comments to the planning staff? Questions?
What's the distance from the from the lowest point to the top of the hill
On phase 5.
on phase 5.
Do you recall that? I'd have to look at those plans and pull those plans up to be able to give you the right answer on that.
I know at a certain distance, sometimes, and I'm gonna use roadway, Kenny, as an example here, okay? When we do bridges and such, we end up putting silt fence or silt dikes, you know, midway of the slopes to help slow some of that down.
You're talking the steep slopes.
Well, even a 3-to-1,
Yeah, well, I consider that as steep as I want them to go.
yeah.
Rather than kept before. I don't know if they've got anything over probably 20 feet, top to bottom. I don't recall off the top of my head seeing anything more than that. And you're right. We don't let them, big thing used to be, well, we gotta do erosion control, let's do silt fencing.
Yeah.
Even in the channels and stuff. It doesn't.
No,
So we don't let them do that in the channels.
right, but we,
It'll be a dike, it'll be a gravel hump, it'll be some,
I mean, you know, we've always used, you know, like a little triangle,
right.
and it just slows it down just a little bit more. It's not the fence, but it's the,
Well, I think we're gonna keep an eye on it. If they've got something that appears it's just too long to stretch, we'll make them come put some in.
I mean, we've even had to come in and stake stake the sod.
Right, yeah.
Keep it from sliding down the slopes.
Yeah.
And just some options there.
All right. This time I'll open up for public comment. Once again, the public comment guidelines for our original public comment still apply. You need to state your name and address for the record, limit comments to 3 minutes in length. Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and limit all comments to phase 5 final plat.
My name is Julie Wickersham. I live on 1302 Northwest First Street. And I have pictures here, if you want to see how high the slope is, next to my fence line. And when I left, they were still up there digging and plowing. We have rain coming Wednesday and Thursday. And there's no sod, there's no fence. The dirt is right up to our fence line. How are they going to get in there to build a wall, to do anything, or even to get the sod up there properly? I don't want to wait until my home has damage and then someone comes out and look what kind of damage I have. That, to me, is why I'm here, is to prevent damage to my home, because I know what happened on the east side, phase 4. And they're still dealing with that. So I don't understand why you would continue with phase 5 when you haven't fixed phase 4. The sod, the Lewises are here. They have water drainage problems, and they weren't asked if everything was okay after the sod was laid, and it was only laid last month. That's whenever the sod was put up, and that's when someone contacted and talked to someone from the city and said they had a huge mound of red dirt, and then bam, they got sod. So I don't want to be a victim. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I would appreciate your attention to this.
Any other public comment concerning final plat of Windermere phase 5? Any other closed public comment at this time? Any other council comments, questions, or concerns?
I've still got concerns. Even using the fence, I'll be honest with you. I don't like the idea. I like the idea of where drainage goes. It's where it previously went, it should previously go. But I also like the idea, I understand our residents there, their view has changed. And, it's gonna change. But in the same token, their property shouldn't change from your property, changing it, as in flooding or silt getting on it. with the way 4 went, I don't feel confident. I'll be honest with you. I don't feel confident in you till I see something better. And something's got to be done right. You've got two engineers on this. I understand you're not an engineer, you're a developer. And we got a city planner and a city engineer coming on board that's going to be overseeing this. And I'll be honest with you, I don't trust it right now.
Well, I see a couple of things. First of all, fear is a big thing. I mean, people,
Yeah.
you know, fear and anxiety, sometimes it proves to be, you know, not as valid, and yet it is what it is. You know, people kind of fear it. And I think for one thing, I wasn't expecting such a large building. I was surprised to see it. And our residents there were surprised to see, wow, look how big of a building and that kind of creates kind of a little bit of fear of like, wow, that's going to come crushing down on us. So I think that's just a realistic anxiety, whether it's well founded or not. But then sure enough, we did have some mud inside some swimming pools and it got addressed but it caused a little bit of pain and suffering from a resident. And I think from what I see, I don't know how we won't see some mud and dirt coming down if it rains Thursday, because the dirt is already there, and it's probably going to. I hope it doesn't cause any damage, but I mean, any construction, we've had drilling sites and home constructions, and there's mud all the way up and down the highways, and just part of construction, so I know we're gonna see some. But part of it is the fear because it's so darn high. Like, wow, you know, it's dangerous. And then the other, so that's why I said, let's be real careful. And then, you know, what happens if it does fill in? Homeowner associations, it seems like they have a hard time coming together and putting out a lot of money to fix something that doesn't hurt them, but it's affecting somebody else. So that's why I'm trying to put something in place for our patrons, our citizens. The other part, though, appears to be less than anxiety is real. One homeowner appears to be getting a lot of water on theirs. It may be the same amount of water, probably no additional one, but really maybe out of good effort of putting a wall there. Unfortunately, it looks like it's affecting one resident really a lot. Their channels, that water's going through the eastern third of their property. And it looks like if that wall went a little bit further, but then, I don't know.
It's the next house.
The next person, I don't know, but
Yeah.
it looks like we have one resident that has a lot of water on there, but the others probably don't have any more. But they did for years. They showed me pictures of how bad the water was, and my only commitment was it won't be any more than it was. That's what we could assure them. Boy, they remember my name and my middle initial and just grunt when they see me at Walmart now because they feel like it is coming down. But construction, you know, but I've never failed to support any part of Windermere. I think it was good for our city. It was fair for the property owner to develop that. I've been proud of the development up there. The number of rooftops and homes that are there. I think that's a natural part of our outgrowth. I just want those families to know we haven't forgotten them. And they're the ones who put us in office. And I just want to be sure their voice is heard. And so I'm still a little concerned. So what I was coming for tonight to get some assurances.
I'm kind of echo what Gene says, but also I was extremely disappointed in the issues that occurred with the previous stages of development, and that it took swimming pools full of mud and some other things to get things taken care of, get those slopes taken care of, because yes, there was always likely some level of sheet flow off of the pasture to the north. I agree with Gordon. It's probably not the same place it was, but we never had mudslides in the swimming pool. what that did is it brought this addition to the forefront of what we look at. We probably spent more time on side at this addition than we have a normal addition 5 times. So it is getting looked at. There are being things done to address issues that did come up with prior phases. I'm not, all I know is we have engineers tell us that this is done according to our standards and according to engineering standards. They're providing the required silt fencing that's required by ODEQ. We're going to be on top of it. The city's going to be on top of it. City manager, I'm sure, will be on site very frequently until this comes to fruition. But all I ask is that the developer be very cognizant of the people that live adjacent to this and continue to do everything you can to minimize the impact on those adjacent landowners, not just in phase 5, but in the prior phase where there still may be some issues with concentrated water.
Mayor, can we rest comfortable that we will place the other concerns back on an agenda for an upcoming meeting? If it's fair ask, that we'll review the impacts of phase 4 next month.
We can do that next month, and two, during that period of time between now and then, I'd like to get some additional on-site visits, maybe when we do have rain, when we have the things happening that and I would like there to be no bad guys when this is over, and that we work collaboratively together to try to get the best solution possible, to minimize the impact. Because yes, people have a right to develop their property, but as Mr. Phillips said a while ago, we want to minimize the adverse impact. So,
This is the biggest neighborhood development we've ever done to date. I mean, it's a big deal, and it's a good deal. I've seen so much positive come out of it, but I also don't want to get it wrong, for our people who've been here for 41 years and their houses are 14 or 20. I don't want to get it wrong for them, so I don't want it to be Newcastle's becoming great at the cost of our people who've already been here. That's I don't want to be in a house where that happens to me either.
Let me ask the question. If we do not approve this tonight, the land still gets developed. I mean, they're developing it right now as we speak, right?
I think that what we run into is legally we have to have a reason not to. And so if we don't have a legal basis, we're not approving this when it meets all of our standards set forth in our regulations, then that puts some potential liability on the city.
Does the DEQ,
And what would you hope to get by not approving it?
I guess saying, proving that it's gonna work. Proving that it's gonna, because this is all we got. Just say, hey,
How many rains do you want it to go?
But that's okay, Tony. One of the things you need to understand too is it's not out of the ordinary for final plat to be approved before any dirt work begins on the project.
true,
So if this is going to be our standard, then we're requiring this developer to meet a higher bar than we require any other developer. And I know that there have been issues. However, I don't know whether we have the ability, I'll defer to Chris, to make up different requirements for different developers, because he could have came in here and did a final plat on this before he did any dirt work for any of the development.
No, I agree. Remediation and looking at past events is one thing, but that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with whether or not the council would have the ability to beg off a decision or approval if it meets all the other standards that have been promulgated so far.
May I say,
Yes, ma'am?
just to kind of follow up with what is the How are we gonna ensure that this is not gonna be? And I had mentioned before, our maintenance bonds. What I'm doing now is we're doing very thorough inspections prior to accepting all public improvements that are gonna be dedicated and that aren't, that are gonna be the responsibility of HOAs. So, for example, right now, just as an example, Fox Hollow 4, they went out there, we're done, come out here and look at it. We've been through 3 or 4 renditions with them on what they need to do as far as sodding, cleaning out their drainages, cleaning up their inlets, not having any dirt in the streets or mud in the roads. So we are doing very thorough inspections prior to any acceptance of any public improvements going forward. And at that point, once we accept them, that maintenance bond is in place, and I'm also putting in place where we're doing regular maintain inspections before that bond expires. So we can go, hey, developer, this isn't functioning as it was according to the plan, or we're having this issue, and we can ask them to remediate that at that time. So there is places of certain checkpoints, if you will, of us going in as staff and with our engineer that we have right now and our future city engineer that will be full-time in staff, that we have these mechanisms in place to ensure that the development is done according to the plans approved.
Yeah, we don't let them, start building and taking occupancy until it's right. That's the hammer we've got. That's where it has to, eventually they're going to have to be able to start, but then they don't get to finish until it's right.
And I put a lot of trust in y'all, I'll be honest. I shouldn't have to drive out there and look every weekend.
Right.
No, should not.
Right.
That's our job.
Yes.
Now, we can't watch it 24/7, but we can make regular inspections to make sure that they're on the right track.
The responses I've heard from city staff have always been positive with regard to the developer meeting and coming back to them. So I've not heard, I'm not defending anyone, I'm just saying that the professionals that do raise the issues are coming back and saying, we've had a positive response, things, here's what they're doing. We're worried tonight that we have enough assurances that it really will be done. That's what we're trying to pin down. But just my observation, no one's come back and said, they will meet with us, or, they're saying it's not, nothing's gonna happen. And so our engineer, and I've not lost faith in you all at all. I'm just trying to pin down this assurance to these landowners, property owners, that they won't suffer damage. And, that's kind of where
And that's the assurance that they're looking for.
And I think for me, we just owe it to ourselves and to those citizens to keep this on our topic. Keep it on and review it. We can't wait 30 days and just not do anything. So trusting that things are happening, but for us to come back and review it and keep it on the conversation until we have that assurance. And I can say that without necessarily tying it to phase 5. I think this is a phase 4 issue primarily. Except we do have one property owner saying phase 5 looks like it's going to be the same issue. I'm not prepared to stop it right now just for that, but I'm kind of concerned.
At this point in time, I will entertain a motion.
Gotta. I'm not liking it, I'll be honest.
I know.
I wish it was easier. mean, my trust is gone on this south end.
I have much greater confidence in the city's monitoring ability to limit or eliminate any adverse.
That I have confidence in. It's the developer I have a problem with.
With the ability to monitor on the city part a lot more stringent, I think that will be valuable.
I'd be happy to still speak to it if you want.
What's that?
I'd be happy to still speak to it if you'd like.
Well,
I'd be open to that, Mayor.
you'd be open to that?
Yeah. I mean,
And you've heard our concerns.
I have.
About 5 minutes done.
Yeah, and really mine's a little bit more calm here is, you know, I don't set out, I put about 1,000 lots a year on the ground. I don't go to every property, much like you just got finished stating. I put my trust in the staff. I put my trust in the contractors. I put my trust in my engineers. I didn't go out there. I didn't tell the engineer, hey, by the way, let's make sure this is really high. So engineer plans, quite frankly, I'm too dumb to understand what they mean because they talk over my head, these engineers. So when I was made aware of it, we addressed it. And I wasn't made aware until there was a problem because I didn't know. I don't drive out there to see. And that's the point when, you know, I take offense when I don't trust the developer. Nothing was intentional. Nothing did we know there was an issue. And as soon as we knew there was an issue, I didn't stand there and say, hey, Kevin, by the way, y'all have already approved this legally. Unless we want to go to district court, I'm not going to touch it. They're done. No. I said, let's spend $50,000 on a retaining wall to try to help mitigate some of it. That retaining wall sat there without backfill until we had contractors for the next phase because they have to mobilize so they can bring in that dirt and do it. Between that period of time, there's no water issues with that retaining wall. Then we put in the dirt. Immediately the phone call started. As soon as the dirt was complete, we put in the sod. We haven't had any issues. We haven't had any overflow on that. We've had erosion control barriers in the areas that don't have the sod up over to the east, which is minimal slope compared to most city ordinances here and what slope is required or allowed. But this past week, and starting I think last week, they've been doing grade work. Got my sod guy's phone number, someone like it. He went and measured it on Friday. He's been trying to cut sod and catch up on previous rain delays to come and put sod on this property. I don't know what else I can do for you other than just stop every bit of water because it's apparent that that's the only thing that makes people happy when it's always flowed that direction. And we've limited a massive amount of that water flowing that way. Phase 5 has nothing like these slopes. Just like Janae said, you say you trust the staff, and then on one hand it's, well, I don't trust the developer. Well, they're monitoring the development. And I've had some stern talks. We have a different dirt contractor for one. That was part of the issue because I pay him to do those erosion control measures, and he obviously did not. That's been resolved. And so now we're talking about phase 5 and it's attaching to phase 4. And I'm sitting here going, okay, well, if you don't approve it, then the alternative is court because I can't do anything more to the development without an approval. And we're doing those measures. So it's trust the staff or not. But if you say you don't trust the developer, then still trust the staff. They're still the safeguard. They're above me. I don't know how to tell you to get beyond it, but
One thing is, I've had, when I first got involved with this, on this model was originally approved, I've repeatedly been told by homeowners that they've attempted to contact you by email and phone and 0 responses over the years, repeatedly. So, and I know Jennifer Lewis probably has her efforts to contact recorded, but there are others that aren't even here who I've been told they've just given up.
that's a great point, actually. Because one thing I want to point out, besides Kevin, besides Janae, not one's decided to call me. I'm bringing revenue into the city. I'm bringing houses into the city. And, I've talked to Janae, it's not a very developer-friendly city. It's known for that. I knew that before I came in here. And it's a disservice to me that I'm not worth a phone call to talk to about that. Because I can tell you right now, the only phone call I ever got, an email, was about a pool, and we immediately took care of the pool. Unless someone wants to verify, call my phone now.
I'll have them get it, it's okay. I don't have them on hand,
Okay.
so I don't.
I would
I'm not gonna
love
quote
to
it,
see
but-
those.
But follow-up is, I'm not overcoming that. Follow-up.
Yeah.
History follow-up is
History of follow-up because you think they've called me and I
follow-up
haven't
and
responded.
follow-up.
Okay. But again, I haven't received those phone calls and emails, so.
Thanks, sir. All right.
Well, I'm starting to feel this is an issue of who do we trust? Who do you trust? And I think regardless of a developer, I think it is city staff. We've got to be assured by city staff that they'll stay on top of it and make it happen. And if they don't, I don't know what our recourse is, but
And that's what I'm worried about. I mean, other than the bonds
All recourse is bonds.
and holding the permits. That's our only recourse that we have. Is my understanding. Is that correct?
You're in the process.
Withholding building permits.
Yeah.
Not been corrected. That's the big hammer.
Question, I don't want to question the engineer because I don't normally question it now. Question, the reality is I did question the engineer.
We've spent an inordinate amount of time on this, and I think it was merited that we've got a long agenda to move forward to, so at this point in time, we need to move forward and we'll entertain a motion.
in my heart, I think that supporting phase 5 is going to be disappointing to some of my very close friends, but I think we've got two different issues here, and I'm gonna support phase 5 development because I think it is going to be real gnarly to tie one to the other and slow down entire development. I came in thinking that the only way to be fair to our citizens is to not support further development, but what's really fair, that doesn't fix anything yet,
No.
because it still has to be addressed. So, I'm just gonna take the risk of doing what's right in my heart and support the phase 5 with realizing that we owe ourselves and we owe to our citizens to do everything we can to keep it right for them. So I will make a motion to approve the phase 5 development
Final plan.
of the final plat.
I have a second that motion. Motion second for approval of the final plan, Windermere phase 5.
Mike Fullerton.
I don't have trust right now. I have trust in my city to do their job. And staff. I have concerns, big concerns of it getting done properly. Hopefully it does. Yes.
Jamie.
I'm reluctant, but for the same reason, I'll say yes.
Marcy White.
I have trust in our city, but that, it goes beyond that for the people who live there, so no.
Roman.
Yes. Item number 7D, public hearing, discussion, and possible action on approval of application for rezoning from A agriculture to E2 urban estate residential for Jimmy D. and Laura B. Avery, property located at the southeast corner of the northeast quarter of the northeast quarter of the northeast quarter of section 17, township 9 north, range 4 west in Indian Meridian, McLean County, Oklahoma, and to be adopted for ordinance number 895, property address 1435 North Rockwell Avenue, Newcastle, Oklahoma, case number R 2021-013.
As you stated, this is a request to rezone from A, general agricultural, to E2, urban estate residential district, R-21-013. This is the zoning map here. This E2 basically is what happened. This was a warranty deed for a 1 acre lot. History on it, as far as we could tell, staff did some research, dates back to about 2005 when this was configured. You can see the surrounding zoning ag, and you can see that the E2, same issue. This was approved some time ago to go to the E2 as well. Staff does make a recommendation for approval. Sorry about that. Let me get to the aerial. There we go. It's all single family. This is an aerial just showing the lots surrounding it, ranging from 2.5 acres. These are all 3 1 acre lots. So to get a building permit, you have to have the required lot area. So that is why they're coming in and requesting this rezoning to E2 so they can obtain a building permit. Staff does support R 2021-013.
How big a tract is it again?
1 acre.
1 acre.
Yes, sir.
I need just a moment to get caught up.
Yes, sir.
Trying to locate this. This is just south of 16th Street
Mm-hmm.
on the west side of the road.
Correct. That is correct, sir.
Just for clarity and probably quickness in locating it, this is straight south of the oil
Yeah, yeah.
site.
Yeah, I'm sure.
helps.
And these are the houses to the east were developed on a cul-de-sac some time back. This road is Rockwell, and it's been a minor short stretch, and these lots have existed.
So how many acres? Is this a PUD?
No, it's straight zoning. So in ag, you have to have 5 acre minimum lot area.
Right.
So this lot, when it was warranty deeded off, didn't come through and do the lot line adjustment, warranty deed approval. Sometime 2005 area, it was split off, probably from this area here. And so you have to have a 5 acre minimum in ag, and they don't meet that.
Right.
So they have to come in, request the rezoning, so the E2 will allow that.
How many
Acreage
acres? Is it a
requirement.
5 acre tract that's been rezoned?
No, just one.
Just one. It's
Oh,
one,
oh.
it's 1 acre, this is 1 acre, this is 1 acre, and this one, if
So
maybe,
they split, they just didn't get the zoning there.
Oh, okay.
correct, before they split off, yeah.
Okay,
So
so
they
they should not be ag anyway, so this is, all right, now, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's split and they never properly get it done.
Yeah, and I think you probably said that, and I was kind of trying to acclimate myself as to where that is, and, okay, so.
I'll try to do a better job on that.
So,
Oh, you did, no, you did, it was me, and so there's some 1 acres on either side of that?
Correct.
We already addressed those as well, that sounds
It's
familiar.
okay. Yes, so this right here was rezoned to E2.
What she just said already?
No, I feel the same. I'm trying to.
Yeah.
What?
Okay.
These 3 were warranty deeded off at some time, 1 acre each. This one was rezoned for the same purpose right here that you see.
So probably no
So-
concern or objections probably came up from this, or was there, or?
No, there was none.
Very procedural.
have we received the 50-foot easement along the section line for that
No, we have not.
planning line?
On the 50-foot easement for this one property, we can address that. Yes, sir.
That's what.
Yes, sir.
Be consistent.
I will add that. Yes, sir.
Any public comment concerning this agenda item? All right. Any other comment from council? Thank you, Chet.
Move to approve item 7D.
Motion second for approval of item number 7D. And with the stipulation that it meets the requirement of 50-foot easement. Is that acceptable to your motion?
Yes.
I have that.
Second?
Yep.
Okay. Motion and second?
Mike Fullerton,
With the 50-foot easement?
What's good?
Yes.
Jean Reed,
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes. Carl Nell.
Yes. Item number 7E, discussion and possible action adoption of the emergency clause ordinance number 895.
Motion approved, which is item 7E, emergency clause of ordinance number 89.
Yes. Second.
Motion second for approval of item 7E.
Mike Fullerton,
Yes.
Jean Reed,
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes. Carl Nell.
Yes. Item number 7F, public hearing discussion and possible action on approval of application for rezoning for PUD plan unit development number 864 to PUD amended plan unit development for Simply Modern Development LLC, Skylar Tate, property located at lot 7, 8, 9, and 10 of lot 4, West Newcastle Edition, as shown by amended plat to the city of Newcastle, Plain County, Oklahoma, and for adoption ordinance number 896, property address 217 North Rack Street, Newcastle, Oklahoma, case number R 2021-014.
As you stated, this request is for an amendment to the planned unit development ordinance 864. This is the zoning map. This is the current PUD here at 217 North Wright Street. This was done approximately a little bit over a year ago where they came in and did this PUD for fourplex. Skylar came in, submitted his building permit. We realized that the PUD had several discrepancies in it. One thing was that there was not any windows allowed on the south side, which doesn't meet building code requirements for egress. They had done some rearrangement. So we took that provision out of the PUD as well as it being platted because this is already had been a platted lot. Those 4 lots are platted. Had the provision in there that they would have to go back and do engineering and plat and final plat this lot. What we did is put it under the RF3 zoning for the PUD for the development regulations, so it can't cover more than 65% of the lot. It didn't need to go through platting because it already has all the utilities there. There's water, there's sewer, and they don't need to dedicate any streets. It's fronts on Wright Street. So it'd be an undue expense for the developer to go in and go do platting when you're not having to dedicate any streets or easements and everything is there. And they can count for the coverage being 65% under the RF3 as opposed to being under the CC2, which does not have the percent coverage requirement. So we amended it for those 2 reasons. If we did put a provision, because I know that commission and council had concern, because as you can see in the previous slide, the surrounding area is all CC2. This was done some time ago, wanting the underlying zoning to be CC2. If something were to ever happen that it did not develop, if it was, if it's destroyed by act of nature, act of God, and not rebuilt back to the fourplex within 3 years, then it would revert back to the CC2. And if the developer takes it down and decides, we're not going to develop this, it will revert back to the CC2. So that has that provision in the PUD. Staff does recommend and support approval of R-2021-014. Planning Commission recommended approval 3-0. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'm not familiar with all your procedures. So like the last thing we saw that was gonna go in there, that stayed the same then?
That is correct.
Okay, because I was like, I've seen this one. So
Yes.
the last drawing and everything, it's all the same, you're just tweaking.
It's a 2-story, yes, it's just for those
Okay.
provisions only, for the building code and for the platting.
Okay.
That was basically it. So they don't have to go through that because you're not dedicating any easements, you're not bringing water and sewer's already there.
Okay.
The street is
So
already
what
there.
we expect to be there is gonna be there.
Right, and it's a fourplex, 2-story fourplex. Each of them, the one on the south end is a little bit smaller and has a single car garage. There's several landscape islands that are 2 islands to help with a drainage in that front area. They meet all the parking requirements. Everything is met as far as requirements. And then they, of course, have to come in for their building permit. So we'll review that to make sure that the coverage, the setbacks, and everything is in place there as well.
And are they planning to use the trendy new structure for those?
No, it's more of a traditional condominium style, townhouse style, 2-story.
So what, is there something there on that lot now?
No, it is vacant. There is a fence. There is a fence there. That's about it. But there's nothing else there on that lot.
So somewhere right in there, I thought I saw some shipping container type buildings.
There is a shipping container there right now. There is something. There's not a structure. There is a shipping container.
But there'll be a structure there.
Yes, it'll be the 4-unit townhouse.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
It's been,
I know, yeah, they've done two different iterations of it.
And the last one was the more of the traditional, it looks like a traditional, not as modern, contemporary design. Correct.
I actually thought maybe we were seeing, because I wasn't part of the other discussions, like some things down in Bricktown where they're bringing in those special structures for residences.
Oh, the pods?
Yeah.
No.
Is there any public comment concerning this agenda item?
Me.
Please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Nancy Weatherford, and I live at 221 Wright Street, which is just north of this property. And he's tore down my fence. He insisted on taking down the tree that was on the property line, and he tore down 30 foot of my fence and hasn't done anything to replace it. And my fence was about 30 years old. And I have a dog that goes outside to my yard. Luckily, she's 14 years old, but I called him and asked him when he was going to repair my fence, and he's ignored me. And I had to do something, because when my daughter goes out of town and her family leaves, I take care of their dogs. And my son's bird dog would be all over the road. I had to try and repair the fence or patch the fence any way I could to keep his bird dog inside the yard. I called him and asked him to do something about the fence that he tore up. They broke every post to the ground, and I had to do something to keep my son-in-law's bird dog in the yard. He never replied. I called him twice. The receptionist said, "Oh, we're going to do something," but they never did. "I want my fence repaired." He said, "Oh, we're jumping through hoops." He never responded to me. They said, "Oh, we're jumping through hoops with the city." He wants to put up a fence. They also tore down the fence for the neighbor 2 doors down, or the next door neighbor adjacent to his property. They put up a fence, the fence that you see. It's stockade fence, but they didn't attach it to everything on his yard. They just put up a stockade fence, but they didn't attach it to the rest of his fence. And so they didn't do anything to my fence. I'm 72. I can't go out and dig post holes to repair my fence. And he's made no effort to contact me to do anything to repair my fence. The rest of my fence is almost 40 years old and hasn't had any damage to it, except when my nephew, who's 40, took my tree loppers and cut holes in it, and I had to replace it with, I put new fence over it. But I want my fence replaced, and I would like for him to replace it. I don't want stockade fence to replace my fence. I want it replaced. He can do anything he wants to on his side of the fence, but I want my fence replaced.
Did you have a chain link fence there?
No, I didn't have a chain link fence. I had a welded wire 2x4 fence. But I didn't appreciate him taking the elm tree that shaded my yard out of the property line.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. Are any of these under the purview of the city, or are they civil matters?
From civil.
All civil matters.
Private property owners.
So the only control we would have over the fence is if the plan unit development requires that he put up a fence surrounding it. And I'm not sure, Janae, does it specify that?
Yes, sir, it does.
And what type of fence?
It's a stockade fence that can be from 6 to 8 feet tall, and it can't extend past the front build line. So that's the front build line is 25 feet in RF3. So it'll go up to where that front build line, where that building is, all the way back into the rear of the property on the west side of the property. And then you stated there is stockade fence right now on that south side of the property. And he can build a 3-foot high fence into the front setback if he chooses to do so.
I'd also not like to know how close is he going to build to the property line?
The setback in RF3 for the building is 5 feet.
5 feet? Then why is mine 12 to 10 feet?
I'm not sure when your building was constructed or.
My building was moved there over 70 years ago.
Yeah, so some time ago that there was maybe different
The
setbacks.
city changed their setbacks.
On the regulation, I'd have to go through
I
back.
don't think there was any setbacks for
There
70 years
There
ago.
wasn't, when that happened, there wasn't the zoning ordinance in place at that time, what regulates your side and front and your rear setbacks, and then the different zoning designations.
Well, I'm curious also about why the city allowed the church to build all the way to the edge of the landscape, all the way to the edge of the road.
Okay, that, we have to stick with
Okay.
what's on the agenda tonight. We can't discuss
Okay.
any other
Oh,
properties,
sorry.
because they haven't been noticed to be here to defend themselves.
Yeah. I was just wondering because they're always blocking the road.
But, what Janae said, there will be a stockade fence built back there. As far as your fence, that is a civil matter between you and the developer, and I hope you guys can get some resolution, but the city has no control.
So he can tear down anything he wants. And I just have to go to civil court, take him to civil court.
The attorney.
I don't think he's saying that he can or can't do anything that he wants. He's just saying that the city doesn't have any control over that issue.
So I would have to hire a lawyer to get him to fix what he tore down.
If you were asking me, I would encourage you to at least consult with one.
I'm just crazy about that.
Well, hopefully, you can have conversations with the developer and you can get an amicable resolution. We would hope. Thank you. Any other public comment concerning this agenda item? None? Entertain a motion.
Motion for agenda item 7.
Second.
Motion second for approval of agenda item number 7F.
Mike Fullerton,
Yes.
Jean Reed,
Yes.
Martha Vaughn, Rhonda.
Yes. Item number 7G, discussion and possible action on adoption of emergency clause, ordinance number 896.
Motion to approve agenda item 7G, emergency clause, ordinance 896.
Second.
Motion and second for approval of item number 7G.
Mike Fullerton,
Yes.
Gene Reed,
No.
Marcy White.
Yes.
Carl.
Yes. Item number 7H, discussion and possible action on approval of revised preliminary plat of Riverview Estates.
As you stated, this is a preliminary plat of Riverview Estates, mixed-use development. This goes along with the PUD. However, the PUD area is this, but they are preliminary platting this area here that's outlined. This is the preliminary plat of Riverview Estates mixed-use development. Planning staff and the city engineer recommend approval of the preliminary plat of Riverview Estates mixed-use development based on all of the things that are added into the PUD, the 50-foot right-of-way adjacent to the commercial area, with the 16.5-foot right-of-way, and the other comments that I had made in regards to the PUD that we had already discussed. The applicant's engineer is here if you have additional questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Any questions or comments from council?
What's your proposed contours look like? Just out of curiosity. To get the drainage to work.
So that's the area below the
Yeah, that's correct. Riverview Estates 1 and 2, section 1 and 2 is here to the north.
Right.
This is the residential area,
Right.
and this will be the commercial area.
All right.
Hence the name of the PUD or the plat, the Riverview Estates Mixed Use Development, not to be confused with Riverview Estates section 1 and 2 to the north.
That's just one little, well, it's two streets, but one.
Correct. Yes, so that, yeah, this loop here, but those are the named streets that are will be the numbered streets that we discussed here and here.
Speaking of traffic, and was it not an additional cutting into the curb? That'll be observed as well
That is correct. Which would have to all be,
for, so is that just traffic count when you say circulation? Does it just do a traffic count? on it?
well, it's the separation between curb cuts that ODOT has to approve.
Yeah.
Yes, so separation between the distance from here to here and from here. Yes, sir.
Is there curb and gutter on this?
Okay,
housing?
so on the housing, that was an exemption that they had asked for through the PUD, that this is not curb and gutter, this is bar ditch through here. And they have the appropriate drainage easements. That was a provision that was put in the PUD that the applicant did request. This whole area will have sidewalks and curb and gutter, all the commercial.
So we're giving them we're moving to 25-foot setback with the curb and gutter? I mean, without a curb and gutter?
I'm sorry, say that again, sir.
We're allowing
Yes.
25-foot setback in the
Yes.
residential?
Yes, sir. They still have to meet the 65%. They can't cover more than 65% of their lot.
And I know this one kind of started out before we developed all our problems with some other additions. Is that why the curb and gutter is absent here?
Correct.
Moving forward,
Moving forward, and I have advised that I'm working with developers, the PUD designation, the way our subdivision regulations are right now, and I did speak to the city manager about this earlier today. Everything A and E1, 2, and 3 is allowed to be bar ditches. All other zoning designations are supposed to be curb and gutter, which would include a PUD. However, what has been accustomed to happening here previously is that they would do a PUD and make the exception or allowance to let them have a bar ditch instead of curb and gutter. We will be bringing this forward to planning commission and to city council. I hope to have it on planning commission agenda for November. The E3 zoning designation requiring curb and gutter from here out in the future, whether it's in a PUD or straight zoning, that straight zoning will take care of that as well.
So the E3 and anything smaller than E3.
Oh yeah, RF1, all of that, and as Windermere, as Fox Hollow,
Or a PUD.
Or a PUD
That
that is-
is 5/8 of an acre lot.
that's correct.
I think that will help us immensely, and I understand this one is in process, but I think we're to the point that we don't need any additional half-acre development without curb and gutter.
I agree.
So.
So is that the original entrance into Riverview Estates?
Correct.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right about that. And are these two new cuts off of 37 that are not there now?
They will be when they develop.
Yeah, right. when they develop it.
There's actually openings there right now.
Oh,
Yes,
are there?
yeah.
I think I've seen that. That's what those are.
Now, they don't go anywhere,
Right.
but there are openings.
There-
The hill
There are
with
curb cuts already
There
there.
are curb
There are.
cuts.
They're on either side of the pond there.
Mhm.
So this is a potential for commercial development, for retail even, and everything go in there.
All fall in the CC2.
Like Janae said earlier, there
District.
will have to be sewer extension to that. There's another station established.
Which is right here.
Oh, yeah, because none of that is. That's all
A couple of hills go would get back to gravity.
So what, I guess what zoning, I mean, in the commercial side, what businesses are we saying can go in there?
It's CC2, so anything CC2 related.
Mhm.
I don't think a Buc-ee's will go there, but there's.
I think the whole community,
About what?
Chick-fil-A.
I didn't say that.
If I could, just a little bit of a response to Gene's question in regard to the street cuts. The practicality is, our ordinances and the Q would not be anticipated to allow additional street cuts, but the planning, staff is not recommending the limited no access designation along. Practical fact is, if there's two, they probably won't allow any more. But that's not an assurance with that, with them. And I see staff's point to the extent that it's impractical to expect there to be additional cuts just because of the distances. The feeling of not wanting a whole lot of them is where that no access request came from.
Is there any public comment concerning this agenda item? All right. And I will, my comments concerning curb and gutter, moving forward, that is directly adjacent to the existing half-acre lots and everything that have open ditches, so this will fit into that, but I think this needs to be the last one.
I agree.
We'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. And
Motion second for approval of item number 7H.
Mike Fullerton,
yes,
Gene Reed,
Yes.
Marcy White, yes, Ron Lee.
Yes. Item number 7I, discussion of possible action on approval of revised preliminary plat of Coachella.
Revised preliminary plat, for Coachella. This is the E3 zoning. It is not changing. If you recall, their preliminary plat had expired. They had brought in, when they brought in section 3, they went back and they did the revision to the, preliminary plat to update that. And this is the plat itself. We did have a couple concerns which have been addressed about property in section 2 and potentially in section 3 that was on another property owner's land. And they have revised this. This is the property, the exhibit that their surveyor did, showing that they're going to grant this section back to the property owner that would be on the north side of section 2 to 3. Staff does recommend approval of the revised preliminary plat, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
How many home sites?
That's a good question, sir. How many lots do we have? Oops, and I haven't, it's on there, excuse me. So we've got,
So much more dense than his initial.
no, same density, yeah, it's, yes, it
Smaller
meets,
picture.
it's straight zoning, it's E3 zoning, and I believe that, and I'm gonna try to look it up. Do you see the lots on there, Kevin? You did, it just as I can't see it on here, and I didn't have it in my,
Permission to approach. Yes, sir.
yeah, maybe we can see it on there, sir.
I can't read it. I can't either.
Okay,
I'm
so
trying to counsel a little bit.
we'll go with a bunch.
A bunch.
Well,
But-
it's straight E3, so it meets the minimum lot requirement of the 27,
0.62 acres and above, so
correct.
it's a little bit
In
bigger
all
than that.
appearances, that's a very nice development there, and
Well, we got very nice.
Well, that's an estimation based on county.
Like 128. I should have known
Does that
that.
sound
I
right, like
apologize.
120?
148. Thank you. 148. I'll make sure to have that info in the future. 146. 146, and that's in this revised preliminary plat, which will be section probably 3 and 4 and 5.
will they use the existing egress and in
Yes,
and out?
yes, yes, sir.
Egress and egress,
Yes,
the two.
that are already there. Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, the two that are here.
But it's not a PUD, it's just.
It's straight E3 zoning. And they have there's no deviations for the setbacks and the coverages and everything.
Two little squares of commercial.
Here, I think Mr. Caffey owns this one here, that he has talked about developing in the future.
Is that Southwest 16?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Okay.
in Country
I know.
Club.
That's Highway 76, so that's.
Yes, 76.
76.
I'm
We're
sorry,
building- we're building
76.
it. Thank you.
We're just going further to the east.
For the comment, I will entertain a motion.
Make motion to approve item 7I.
Motion second for approval of item number 7I.
Mike Fullerton,
Yes.
Gene Reed,
Yes.
Marcy White, Carl Nell.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. At this point in time, I will do a 5-minute recess before I have a meeting.
All right, muted.
How did this the 17? Three away. I still have four. Yeah.
Maybe it's taken, well. Well. I didn't know you said, yep. Nobody knows, so.
Three.
What doesn't pass.
The council meeting at this time. Item number 8, discussion of possible action regarding remediation of paving, drainage, engineering, design, and issues related to construction improvements in the Ridge phases 1 and 2.
I believe there are some citizens here that live in the Ridge that would like to speak to this at this point.
All right, are we gonna have any opening comments about anything?
Well, I can give brief comments. When I say we, the city staff, has been looking at drainage issues in the Ridge now for, probably the last 6 months, maybe a little longer. Than that, we have some issues down in phase 2, which is the north side. Some of it is developed. Some of it is built on the south side of phase 2, which is south of 37th Street, has not been built on, and at this point is not buildable because of drainage issues that has washed out a water line, city water line. Some drainage channels are not in the correct locations. A lot of those were supposed to have concrete channels and did not receive them. And the flow is just not the proper direction. Now, in phase 1, there are some issues with no drainage ditches or tin horns. Could be that these drainage ditches were filled in during construction phases of homes, that they were there at some point. Phase 1 started, I believe in 11, was it 08? Oh, wow, okay.
Pulled up some old the original dirt work where the main entrance. Saw a picture today, it was February 08.
Okay. So the issue, primarily the issue that we have right now is drainage. Water is flowing from west to east, sheet flowing across the roadways, across everybody's properties, all the way down to the east until it hits the creek. And it's not following any specific channels. Ponds and drainage ponds and things of that nature have not been created in phase 2 the way they should have been. And that's what's causing the issue. There's a very steep grade toward the east, and the way everything has been constructed, it's not allowing any detention of this runoff before it just sheets across people's properties. And in some cases, as you will hear here shortly, it has caused issues for a couple of property owners that basically have wall, if you will, in their backyard that was a retaining wall. A retaining wall actually collapsed, was not built correctly, apparently. And a lot of washout in these folks' yards. That is, and no really any kind of an effort to control this.
And just want to learn a little bit more before we have the residents come up. Kevin, so we've been looking at this a long time. The developer did not construct drainage as was approved in the plan, drainage plan. However, the city accepted those improvements, the streets, the drainage. So it's now our baby. And in looking at these over several months, and working with the city engineer, we looked at various avenues, and Kenny will speak to that in a little bit here. The various avenues to go in and recreate some of the drainage that was not done originally, or was filled in if it was constructed. And I believe he feels that there is a solution that can be done. However, that solution will be at the expense of the city of Newcastle. So when I talked a little bit earlier about curb and gutter in these half-acre developments, This is one of the primary reasons, because if we had curb and gutter, this water wouldn't be able to sheet across houses and yards and roads and continue to flow down the entirety of that slope. So, we have a plan. It will take a lot of money to develop that plan, but that's where we are. It's our baby to fix. Is that correct?
I agree with that. I mean, we're at the point, these residents are at a point, that it needs to be repaired. There needs to be, I think, we're at a point that we need to stop, looking for a solution that will ultimately never come, and go ahead and take care of the issues.
And the city should have never accepted things that we accepted. And, you know, we are doing much better now. We will have an, but it is what it is with what we accepted already. We've got to remedy the situation. So that being said, this time is any public comment concerning this agenda item. Please state your name and address and approach the podium.
I live at 3685 Quest Court. And
Repeat your
I'm
name again.
Tammy, Tami, Kubier, Kubier. And I live at 3685 Quest Court. I'm on the HOA board. I'm the secretary. And so we've just had a lot of issues. First and foremost, we had a meeting, an HOA meeting, June 17th. And I want to thank Kenny Sullivan, Janae Greenlee, and Janet for coming to the meeting and helping our residents to understand kind of what's going on. Brent has not been any help to anyone. You guys are probably running into the same thing we have. And
Not to cut you off. Unfortunately, the developer is not present tonight. And so we've got to keep our comments unrelated to the developer.
can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
When you said that you guys are responsible for it, is that only phase one and he'll still have to take care of phase two because the bond, what did they do in the bond? You guys like stopped it because it was like a month before it was out.
At this point in time, we're not able to discuss that. That the developer was notified. He is unfortunately out of state and could not be here tonight. But anyway, so
Okay. Because that's what we were on in our understanding from everything we understood is that Brent was still under the bond and he's supposed to fix the ditches, the retaining walls, and then the drainage ponds that really aren't ponds. They're like in someone's backyard that probably whoever buys that property is going to have to maintain, unfortunately. The only street that really has proper drainage is the first street in the entire development, which is Black Forest. It's actually done correctly, according to people that have looked at it that have built, things before. Like where I live, I'm in phase one, so I know we're probably just out of luck. But where my house sits at the top of the hill, I did great until they built the house above me. And then when they built him, they're on Merlin Court. There is no drainage place for it to go at all. Now at the bottom of my hill, I didn't have ditches, but my neighbor has machinery that he dug me ditches. So now I have ditches. And then I bought 8-inch pipe at my own expense, put that in there on his side. We just had dirt put in just the other day. And then on the other side, I have an 8-inch pipe that goes all the way to where the actual gully is, but they didn't finish it in. So the water doesn't really go anywhere. It goes down through there. And then I have this gully for it to go, and it should run all the way there. And then it's supposed to run behind the other properties and run back through, like it's supposed to. That's what it shows on the drainage things. But they didn't concrete all of that in. They only concreted the top part right here. Then I have grass right here in the middle, and then I have the concrete here. So, of course, the water hits that grass, and it stops. So then I just have a big mud puddle. And what I can't catch in my 8-inch pipes is going over the road, onto my neighbors, into their garage, into their storm shelter. And then they made a little trench. And then because it was going in their garage, so then now they're dropping it on King Arthur behind them because there's no place for it to go. So that's where we have issues. And then we've seen Brent Cook back there. We've been told that he doesn't have any more building permits in there at this point because he's got to fix these issues first. But we've seen him in there a lot, and there's a company called Apple Construction. We don't know if he has any affiliation with them. We don't know. But he's back there looking at these new pads that are being poured. Constantly, he's back there, from what we get told by the neighbors that live literally in the houses right there along it. So we don't know if he's maybe pulling a fast one. We're not exactly sure. Something's going on because he's back there a lot looking at things. So, and like in phase 2, there's a cut from Westport to King Arthur that's probably 6 foot that he cut when he built these new houses. So then that's where Matt's wall fell. Chris didn't get a wall. Oh my goodness, poor Kim, her whole yard is flooding away. One of the other neighbors down there has about 5 foot ruts in his yard. He can stand in them. It's so bad. So that's where we're kind of at. So that's why we were asking questions, because we had our HOA meeting June 17th, and then we were having our annual meeting on October 13th. And so we asked for an update, and it sounded like that really, now that we've talked to you guys, it sounds like you guys are doing something, but it didn't sound like that anything was being accomplished because Brent was pretty much just saying he wasn't going to do it. It's kind of what we've heard.
We being the city, and I've been involved in numerous meetings where we've studied things in depth, worked with the city engineer, and developing a plan to address that. Correct, Joe?
That's correct, yes.
And can you speak to that here in just a little bit?
And we appreciate that. We just hadn't really gotten any answers, and we've got a lot of neighbors that are getting antsy, that wanted answers. So we just decided maybe coming to the city council meeting to maybe get some answers might be the right way to go.
And I definitely understand your frustration.
So we appreciate it.
Well, we hope to get a solution to your issues. We want you to be happy residents of Newcastle. So, we don't want you to be unhappy living here. So,
We appreciate it.
any other public comment concerning this agenda item?
My name is Kim Plummer, and I live at
What was your last name?
Plummer,
Kim.
3713 King Arthur Court. I live in the cul-de-sac. I kind of got some education listening to the other thing, but it just, so many points that came across. My property is a big hill. My neighbor that is up above me, who is also in the cul-de-sac, catches all the rain, drains to her house from Quest, and feeds off, floods her garage, floods her storm shelter. What doesn't catch there flows over the hilltop into my entire, basically a side yard. Part of my property was sodded, part of it wasn't. I will agree the sod does help with the Grand Canyon craters that happens on the part that wasn't sodded. I too have 5-foot craters in that side of the property that I can stand in. There was an attempt to put a little, 2-foot by 2-foot drain to catch the water coming over the hill, which water comes all the way across. But it's just like a crater that comes down my property. My concern in listening, phase 2 is not going to be fixed until phase 1. We were again told that no more building was going to happen in phase 2 until the drainage issues were fixed. And I'm happy, I'm hoping, I'm understanding that, phase 1 will be fixed because that will help us in phase 2. But it's very disheartening. I bought my forever home. I invested hundreds of thousands of dollars. Thankfully, the rains came. I've been in my house a year, September 29th. Thankfully, the rains came before I invested more money in, the things that I want to do to my property that have literally been on hold. Because I can't do it, because when the rains come, my property floods. I've got pictures where a 4-foot wide river flows through my backyard. I can't, do the things I want to do with my property because all of the water from Crest comes down the hill right onto my property. So I hope that you guys come through and help us. You got to fix what's broken before you can continue on and keep, going with the lower levels because,
Like I said, the city engineer to speak to.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I'm at Shrum at 3707 King Arthur Court. I closed on my house about 1 week after on May 7th, 2021, when the retaining wall collapsed in the month of April 2021. The wall was in the contract to be rebuilt and drainage issues resolved. The wall that was built was not approved by the city and was not on the approved plat. We had several months of very wet weather and was not able to do construction per contract. The builder tried to build the wall after removing the wall without a permit once again, but I had the city deny him from building it without a permit. He has spent months dodging the city's requirements. The last couple of months have been dry, and if there were a permit approved, he could have built the wall. I have not heard from him in the last couple of weeks. I was also told that the plot should have been sodded before it was sold to me months later, according to the city. It was sodded only around the house. Both side lots are red dirt. My utility lines are being washed out because of the drainage issues of King Arthur Court. A drain was put in, but no water goes into it, as well as constant spring, constantly water coming through the yard on both sides. The builder also added sod in the ditches, and dirt has covered a good portion of it on both sides of the property after the rains. And I've submitted photos and videos to Jenny and Kevin over the past few months and probably 50 plus emails.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Chris McCulley, 3701 King Arthur Court. I'll kind of beat the horse on what they've said, but I just want to reiterate. I guess I didn't realize moving to my neighborhood would be such an adventure. Got it because my wife really liked the house. It is a very nice house for a great neighborhood, great neighbors. But yeah, kind of like what Matt was saying, we didn't realize there were some things that should have been done before we moved in, closing, like sod and stuff like that, that would have helped probably alleviate a lot of issues, probably not all of them, but it would have helped some. And like I said, I am not an engineer. I trusted every process available. I trust realtor, closing company, inspectors. I am ignorant on all that stuff, so I don't know about proper slope of the land or grade or anything like that. I just sign here. Here's your mortgage. Here's your payment. Thank you. We'll see you next month. But I just like what Kim was saying. I bought a house wanting to stay here for a while. I really enjoy small town. I really enjoy this area. My son loves the schools here. And would definitely like to hear some kind of resolution whether from the builder, or developer, or whatever, or the city, whoever. We thank you for everything that you all done. And Janae, I know she's heard an earful from everybody the last few months, but I guess just kind of want to make sure that the drainage will be taken care of. If there's a time frame, what are we going to expect on our personal properties? Like, is there going to be sod from my land or my part that wasn't sodded? Whose responsibility is that? The drains that were put into place, like Matt was saying, they're subpar. I mean, my drain is probably about 4 inches above the ground, and water just channels around it and gets probably 30% of the water, and everything else is Grand Rapids down that wall. But other than that, I thank you all very much, and hopefully we can get some good resolution and good communication, because there are a bunch of tired neighbors. I moved in January, and man, I did have hair at the time. So. Thank you all.
Any other public comment? This time I'd like to ask King Solon to come forward and discuss the issue.
Can we pull up an aerial of that area? I talk better when I'm pointing.
Yeah, I was trying to, I pulled one up here so I could see where the people live and what was affecting them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, go ahead and. Yeah, go ahead. You remember from Sunday meeting, I do a lot of hand waving and pointing and, yeah, we've been out there numerous times looking at this. Phase 2 is easy. We got to finish. The improvements that are in the plans need to be finished. The detention pond was never completed. It's actually supposed to be ponds. There's supposed to be 2 twin wet ponds. Stay wet. Nice pond. You know, in theory, when Mr. Landis, the engineer for it, it was supposed to be a nice, beautiful setting to back your home up to a pond, and it was never finished. The right structure wasn't put in. The ditches were supposed to have a concrete liner. They don't. They're washing out in that area, as you know. I'm talking about 2 right now. Two needs to be finished. The plan in place is a valid plan. It just needs to be finished. Now, one is more difficult. It's established. I think Carl hit it on the head because he and I have talked about it. I think originally, before any houses were built out there were ditches down through number 1. And essentially, the crest of the hill kind of runs diagonally through the water tower, makes its way to this street. Is this Merlin?
That's Merlin.
Okay. Makes its way to Merlin. And Merlin, as you all know, that's about the top of the hill.
It comes that way though. Where your finger is, go to your right.
In here.
When it comes to my house.
Yeah,
No,
it does.
This right here is.
It does make its way here, but it should.
See, it goes right where that house is.
Yeah.
All
but-
of that comes this
Right.
direction.
Essentially, everything here comes on down this way. Our problem is
But they fixed the water
these
tower.
downhill, these houses that are on the east side are so far down below the street, you can't come back in and put a ditch in, or else you'd have a drop off. The other thing, you can't come in and put a curb and gutter, because then you'd have to build a hump in the driveway to keep the drainage out. Otherwise, everything's going to come down the street in the gutter line and then funnel right down a driveway into a garage. So the best we can do, but we can come in on the uphill side of the street and put in a drainage ditch and intercept this flow. We can't get all of it. We can get, parts of it. Anything that falls in the street is still going to make its way back through there. I can't do anything about that practically. But we can get it on the uphill side so you don't have 3 blocks worth of water coming down through there. We can make this better.
And so when we pull it down south or back north on those streets, to the primary street going
Yes,
east
we
west.
probably need, she's talking, I think you were talking here, kind of ponds a little bit.
Yeah.
We probably need to reshape that. These concrete patches, those were meant to be, they're called drop structures. It is so steep that it's either you do something like that, or you attempt to do a concrete channel, or you do gravel, and gravel doesn't work. It just wears through the bottom. So what they do is they put concrete on to get it down, and then they flatten it. Okay, so it's slow velocity, grass stays, and then it hits the next one, it drops on down. That's why those things, they're all fairly steep.
But it never gets to the second.
No, we need to reshape it between the two. Need to reshape it between the two, but essentially, we need to get these ditches and get them regraded back to the ends where this one actually comes this way and then that way. This one comes down, that one.
Goes back down to this.
Yes, yes. These two streets come down and that's
I say.
a concrete structure, that's a concrete structure. And I think they built a fence, in the middle of that concrete structure, but essentially that comes this way, that goes that way, and then these two go up and then back around. Again, phase two, we need to finish the plan that was in place. Phase one, I think we could give you some relief. We can't get it the way it was originally designed. Unfortunately, we think the builders, someone did away with the ditches that were originally planned and at least partially constructed.
We could arch
But,
back.
yeah.
You've probably been out there and saw. it.
Yeah, but we would like to get it, and I've seen it, and you've done a good job of doing what you can. I would like to get you something that you can mow.
Well, I just put dirt in those.
Okay, some,
I just.
well, we would like
The
to,
other day.
I've seen a number of houses that basically, took a small backhoe bucket and dug about a foot ditch. Well,
It's my neighbor.
that's
He's
tough.
the only one that's gone.
That's tough to mow. I would like to get you a nice rounded ditch that you can run your lawnmower through that will drain out. We're probably looking, a lot of those culverts have to be replaced. They're probably not set at the right elevation. I don't know until we got into, a survey and actually put some plans together, but, that's the plan I have, to make this better.
Where do we go from here?
Quite honestly, I would like to get our in-house engineer on board to be able to work with Kenny on this.
He'll be on board.
November 29th.
We can bring him up to speed and I can support him on whatever he needs along those lines.
Yeah. But I'm thinking on this this is going to take a lot of work, and quite a bit of time to actually get it done, especially if we actually have to go in and replace tin horns and things of that nature.
Are we gonna be able to do it in-house or?
And that's where I'm going. If that is the case, we can pretty much scratch off a lot of road projects to be able to do this.
No.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it's more than likely going to have to be contracted once Kenny comes up with a good solid survey and the studies and everything else, that we're going to have to bid this thing out, I think. And especially to get it done in any time fashion.
And so that being said, what is a reasonable timeline for this? We've got these people that, it sounds great that we're to do something, but the when is the important part.
Yeah.
We're not going to take any action tonight, I understand that, but just a ballpark of Kenny will get the new engineer on board. We've got lots of things backed up for him, but realistically, how long do you think it will take to get surveys and work with him to get some type of plan of action to at least start on the phase one areas?
The phase one area, the phase one area is the quicker one to get to be honest. I think, essentially he's not going to be able to come on board and start till December 1. So you're probably looking in the mid-February having a set of plans ready to go.
Are there any actions, I don't want to throw good money at bad, but are there any stopgap actions we could do during that time? I mean, is there anything with the right excavating machine? In other words, I'm not for digging a ditch as part of the solution.
Yeah, I mean, that's
but-
what you'd be looking at, Gene, is you'd be looking at trying to, at least get someone out there in the winter when it's too cold to lay asphalt or something and digging. But then where's it go if there's not a culvert at the right elevation? You're digging them and making them a mud hole in their driveway.
Yeah, then the turnout driveway.
Then you're, yeah. We may have to cut some driveways to redo the culverts.
All right, so we're looking at probably an April situation before we can get this thing bid out.
Yeah.
And we can get any construction done.
Yeah.
And so, that is probably what we
Well,
will
that's
shoot
what I was
for.
wondering.
And I understand, but I don't know
Logistically, yeah.
we can do at this point in time. No, that's not.
My question is,
We want to get it surveyed properly. We want it all to flow the right direction. We don't want it to just, I'm hoping we have enough slope that we're not going to have some nuisance water standing in some areas. But if the grades are flat, we could end up with some times when it stays a little wet. We can try not to. I'm telling you that right now. We're going to do the best we can with the grade we've got to work with. And I hope when we're done that you're coming and saying, well, it's not perfect, but it is better than what I had. Okay? In fact, I hope you say it is perfect, but, we're gonna make it better.
Hey, what can you say about the wall?
The wall, Janae, what did we decide on building permits on the wall?
So like from the last email that I sent, I mean, this was something that was put into your contract between you and the builder. So really, I can only, he submitted the soil test. I said, you have to submit the engineered plan based on the soil test. That was an email that it was copied with the city manager, and he's not provided it. He said, well, I gave you the engineered plan. No, you gave the engineered plan for that standard detail for that ODOT permit, which was not based on the soil test that he had done. I said, you have to give me an engineered plan based on that test. And he had just not responded, and that's when I had said to you, at that point, I mean, I can't force his hand to give me an engineered plan for a building permit. That's up to him to do. And like we had talked about, that's you coming to him, or you going to him. It's a civil matter at that point. On that private property and that wall, that was in your own personal contract. I can't force him to give me an engineered plan that's going to meet our regulation. I can just deny what he's already sent in and say it doesn't meet our requirement, like we did, because he wanted to build you another 4-foot wall without the proper footing and without it engineered correctly and without the slope meeting that requirement. And so
I just didn't know why the city allowed them to build the first wall.
I'm not sure. I wasn't here at that time.
Just let them go in there and build it.
I don't think he had approval for it. I think that he just constructed that wall. I don't think that there was ever a permit or anything. From my knowledge, from what I've done on any research, I think that he went in and just did it.
And no one was around to look for that?
Well, there's lots of stuff that gets built.
Oh, yeah.
If it's not permitted, there's no way that the city knows about it.
Unless someone is what it usually is the neighbor calling in and saying, hey, there's something going on, or they have a concern, and somebody calls in and asks, do they have a building permit? They're building a big barn next door to me. And then I can go look and say, oh, yeah, they do have a permit. Yes, it does meet the requirements. Or no, and we send out our code inspector and building inspector, and they put a stop work order. So we have a lot more eyes on, I think, than we did in the past. And that's a positive thing. Yes, ma'am.
So my question is, the letter that you sent out about grades and sod, basically, at the time he did all of this, nobody was going out there and checking and saying, hey, this is supposed to be at this angle, and you need to sod this before we sign off on it.
In phase 2? That's right.
So we going to, is he going to be held accountable to make that grade match up to meet your letter along with the sod, or is that on me to get that grade?
At this point in time, that's not something that we can address. On phase 50. So we will not be able to.
And this is a discussion item, it's not an action item.
Yeah.
And we're making,
have-
this is a discussion, we are definitely
Yeah.
on.
You've heard what we've been through before this with one of the others, okay? And it doesn't help, but we have a process in place, we think, that would not let this happen again. Now then, you also heard that it's tough to bring them to the table, and you know that. We have bonds we can go back on. We have other things along those lines in these cases. But, you know, to be honest, if a developer wants to start something and then walk away from it half finished, there's not a lot we can do.
So are you gonna call in the bond?
Now, again,
Or you can't talk about
that's an ongoing discussion. We're here to try to solve your problem.
And you have a commitment from this council. We're going to move forward with the solution. Starting with phase 1, but we're going to do it right, which is going to require engineering. It's going to eventually require us to likely go out to bid and pay a contractor to do these improvements. And we have no earthly idea how much that's going to cost. It's going to be significant. But we want to make sure we do it right. You know, we can send a backhoe out there tomorrow and start digging ditches, and that may or may not solve the problem. But that's not what we want to have happen. We want to make sure 20 years from now, this is still functioning like it's supposed to. And your property values are still intact. And that, you know, like Kenny said, you know, we're not going to be able to build it back to how it was supposed to be done originally, but we're going to do it in a manner that's engineered professionally to ensure we get the best outcome we possibly can.
I think it's probably worth saying, Mayor, that we're going to be working in public right-of-way areas and not on private property, because the city is not allowed to do that, nor can we contract companies to work on private property. All we can control is what happens on public rights.
Just for clarity, how much space, how much distance is that off the road?
I don't know.
50, plus there's probably a UEDE on each side of, there's 50 foot right of way. And those roads should be fairly well centered since they weren't built that long ago. And then there should be an additional, and I haven't looked at it, but there's an additional 15 or 25.
Okay.
To be honest, if we find an area and we need a little more, we probably will come to you as homeowners and say, we could make this better if we had an additional 10 feet.
Oh, so then we
Would you sign us up? And, you know, if you will, then we'll make it that way. If someone, and not just you four, but if someone says, no, I don't want to sign anything, then we'll do the best we can with what we have to work with.
The HOA, if somebody does that, could you guys let us know so we can put that in their file so we have it snowed in? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, if they say yes, if they say no.
So if they say no, so they can't come back and say, well, they never
Oh,
fixed mine. And then we would have it on record to say,
I-
well, actually.
I understand the theory on that. I'm going to have to discuss that with the city before I answer that.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Oh, it does. It absolutely does.
And, you know, come to every meeting and, oh, well, we need this,
Yeah.
done, but you guys.
No,
have
my
offered
brother's
to
my
do-
construction guy, and he would absolutely go
We
tell.
have to- It's agenda items, if we get right of way, do we pass it on council, like at a council meeting where they would hear it?
It's typically on the consent agenda.
Right.
And
Okay.
so,
But it's
So
public,
we-
it's
but
public,
at that time, it's public.
public information.
So, you know,
So
you have,
search the-
yeah, you have our commitment. What we would like to do in the future is as we move forward with the process, you know, keep Kevin aware of HOA meetings. And at a point in time where we have something to share, we would be more than happy to come and just let you guys know where we are in the process,
Yeah.
where it is, really, it's likely to be in April before we have some engineering, finished and are looking to go out to bid, so, it won't be anytime in the near future, but,
Yeah,
Um,
I hope we don't have to have more because, as you can imagine, that's a legal document that we have to have, and we have to have you sign it, and it's just another step to go through. We're gonna try not to, but that was just kind of a worst case.
No, that's good.
so I hope you've heard something good tonight, and we're gonna go ahead and move on, just because we've got a lot to get to. But, you have been heard, we're listening to you, we've been working on this for a long time. I've spent a lot of time looking at the drainage plans for that, so, we're gonna move forward and get something.
We really appreciate you for help.
Evan? Is there something we can do about the sod right now? Because I'm sure that would help quite a bit. And at least I know on King Arthur, with the craters that are there and stuff like that, is there something that can be done right now?
Now, if you're talking about across private property, we can't. The only thing we could put sod down on or seed or anything like that would be the right of way, the easement.
And that's the intent of my question earlier. If you know of any, just go do it items like that, it would be nice to know.
Yeah.
Was that something I could go after Brent for? If she's been done?
We can't respond to that.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, item number 9, discussion of possible action approval of estimated cost with the Southeast 40th Street Bridge Project, approval of engineering plans, and authorization to advertise for bids for materials and construction.
We talked about that last one, right, Southeast 40th Street?
We did, we had an old wooden bridge that had gone down to a very, very small capacity. And then there was some overweight vehicles that went across it and
Right.
What was it across?
it's just west of Western, north of Highway 9. I used to have, haven't in a long time.
What has happened on this is yes, we did meet with Engineering out there, and they were going to give us a proposal to engineer and design this bridge and then send it out to bid and things of that nature. Their proposal came back at $243,000. So we sought another option, and that is to build a engineered county bridge. So we were able to obtain engineered drawings from the county, McLean County, on a bridge that they basically just did here recently, which I think y'all got the pictures on that in your packets. So that design is there. It's engineered already. That will work perfectly fine with what we're needing on Southeast 40th down there. What we're asking for is just to be able to send that out to bid.
Great idea.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to push through these others pretty fast.
Kevin, do we need to do anything about geotech and on the abutments?
No, and Poe basically even said that while they were out there. I mean, this thing, the beams that we have and everything else should stretch as far across there. The wing walls and things of that nature that the county, have you seen that drawing?
Yes, I just with the packet,
Oh, okay.
just with the packet.
But, so what they're saying is, those wing walls, we can adjust those however we need to or whatever, but that it should be. Now, as far as when we send this out to bid, we will ask the company, whoever it is that is selected, that they also include a third-party inspection on this whole project, as part of their bid submittal.
Make motion to approve item 9. Excuse me.
No, go ahead.
You good?
Motion to have a second?
Yes, more me.
Motion second.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, item number 10, discussion of possible action on utility relocation agreement with ODOT for the State Highway 76 water line relocation.
Okay, I think most of you will remember last spring, we actually went to DEQ for this. We're taking a base bid to relocate some water line down through there, about 6,800 feet of 6, 8, and 12-inch line. We just got some comments back from ODOT finally, just a couple of weeks ago. So we are still making some final corrections. I do not have a dollar amount on the base bid, but ODOT has agreed that as for the base bid, as they say, replacing it like kind, replacing what's there, relocating what's there, they're picking up 100% of that. So now then, after that, we're going to take an alternate bid to upsize and extend some 12-inch, and then anything over that amount, the city would be responsible for. This agreement, I would urge you to approve it and approve the mayor to sign it once I get a cost estimate together. But as you can see on the 4th page, it is 0% for the utility owner and 100% state for reimbursement.
Motion, you ready for a motion?
Yep.
Motion to approve agenda item number 2.
Second.
Alderson,
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Marcy White. Carmen.
Yes. Item number 11, discussion of possible action on advertising for bids for the State Highway 76.1 location. Any ODOT approval of the agreement?
Yeah, again, we've got DEQ approval. They anticipate giving us authorization maybe the end of this month, early next month. So I didn't want to have to wait another month. If they give it, let's go ahead and go out for bid on the thing.
So the right of way is there.
I guess it is. You know, we thought that they were doing something funny, and it ended up being Western Farmers. There was a substation or something that they did not want to have. It was too expensive, so they did. It ended up not affecting water at all, but it gave us, a 6-month hold on the whole thing.
Yep.
So, yeah, apparently they're ready for us to relocate everything.
motion to approve agenda item number 11.
Second.
Motion second for approval of item.
Alderson,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Item number 12, discussion of possible action on approval of asphalt overlay project for approximately 1.5 miles of County Line Road between Pike Road and Northwest 16th Street, and authorization to advertise for bids for contractor labor and equipment.
This is the section of county line that Newcastle is solely responsible for, and we would like to send this project out for bid.
Is this what we talked about at the county on the?
Yes,
Person
but
taking
this is our sole section here that we're responsible for. Tuttle is going to partner with us on the north section that we share with Tuttle, and they are taking care of that bid process. The southern section that we share with Blanchard will not be done because Blanchard is not willing to participate at this point due to funding.
Now, one little quick question on that. You know, on Southwest 24th, we've decided we'll just split. We'll do an agreement. We did an agreement with Blanchard. We did east half, they did west half. Is there opportunity for us to do that on this stretch? So we can get ours, we can say, we're doing our half, we've done it. Blanchard hasn't showed up.
We can, we want to leave a 2-inch lip there of asphalt sticking up that could cause an accident.
Surely we can feather it down to Weaver.
If that's what council's supposed to do.
If there's not,
Do we even know
Yeah,
how thick those
I
streets?
like for them to drop in and realize I'm on Blanchard.
There is some safety issue there, I'll say.
if there's a lift, is there a way to do it without it?
No,
Depends on the
yeah,
ground.
cold mill. You can cold mill the
Yeah,
existing.
Depends on the crown. I
Yeah.
mean, the mayor's right. If it's a real big crown, you can kind of probably feather it. But if it's pretty flat, you'd almost have to mill the whole thing.
Yeah. And I was wondering if we could mill.
That was just
That's
a thought. I don't want to delete things tonight since it's about midnight already, so. But that's something for future to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to approve agenda item number 12.
Second.
Motion second for approval of item number 12.
Mike Fullerton,
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Marcy White.
Yes.
Carmen.
Yes. Item number 13, discussion of possible action approval of purchase of two 2021 4 police interceptors at state contract price for for Sam Walker's Freedom Ford, McAllister, Oklahoma.
Police chief has found 2 of these Ford Explorers located in McAllister. The 5 that was approved by council in July, and we subsequently ordered, actually go to manufacturing next month. So it's going to be April, something of that nature before we ever get them. We've had a couple of more Dodges that have bit the dust, and we need something as quickly as possible. The equipment we already have in place will actually fit these, and these, when the chief talked to this dealership down there 10 days ago, they said that these vehicles were expected on the lot in 30 days. They were actually ordered by a department based on a grant, and then the grant fell through from the department, but the cars are still coming.
So they'll hold them awaiting our
Yes,
approval.
yes.
Cool.
Very good.
Make a motion.
37.6.
Good price.
Second.
Motion second to approve item number 13.
Mike Fullerton.
Yes.
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes.
Yes.
Not sure what you added there at the end, but we approved it.
I know.
I'll tell you the price later.
Item 13, vote selection moving the citywide Christmas event previously scheduled for November 30th, 2021, at East Fortnite Parks Convention Park, the Christmas in the Park event to be held on Saturday, December 4th, 2021.
We have the Christmas parade coming, and our very first one this year, and he's been working on that now already for about 3 weeks, putting everything together. So it was originally scheduled for the 30th, the beginning of this year. Council actually approved that, but we would like to go ahead and change that to December 4th on that Saturday. There'll be festivities and the parade and all that stuff throughout the afternoon and the evening.
Very clearly. Very clear.
Yes, and this will be held out here. We're actually getting a 18-foot tree, live tree, that will be out here in Veterans Park, out here on the corner.
In lieu of, or in addition to?
We're still going to light that, but we're not going to hold the ceremony. That's the parade here.
I like both.
Very good. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve agenda item 14.
Second.
Motion second to approve item number 14.
Mike Fullerton.
Yes.
Gene Reed.
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes.
Yes. Item number 15, discussion and possible action approval of a non-exclusive franchise agreement with Coxcom LLC, the Delaware Limited Liability Company, for operation and maintenance of a cable service system for a period not to exceed 10 years, and adoption of ordinance number 897.
Cox Cable is coming to Newcastle from I-35 coming westbound to the east side of May. They had contacted us about a franchise agreement. Camille has been speaking with their representative, and I believe we got it at 5%. Although, were you able to check and see what kind of percentage other cities are receiving from Cox Cable?
Checking with me to see what we're receiving, and they're wanting to go for 5 as well.
With a benchmark.
I will tell you that the Federal Cable Act allows 5% or under. Is that correct, Chris?
It's 5%.
So we're receiving them in.
Sounds like a plan. Make a motion to approve.
Second for approval of item 15.
Mike Fullerton.
Yes.
Gene Reed.
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes. Carmen.
Yes.
So that's coming, will that come into Newcastle or only to the east side?
East side, right.
Only east side.
I'll tell you, this ordinance does cover the entire city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really, their plans.
Good, thank you.
Item number 16, discussion of possible action on adoption of emergency clause, ordinance number 897.
Make a motion to approve item 16.
I'll second.
Motion second to approve item number 16.
Mike Fullerton.
Yes.
Gene Reed.
Yes.
Marcy White. Yes. Carmen.
Yes. Item number 17, discussion of possible action on adoption of resolution 2021-10, approving speed zone notification by the Oklahoma Department of Transportation.
ODOT is changing their speed limits down on I-35, and a section of this, of course, affects Newcastle. And I believe they're going from 60 to 65 in our area down
It won't be chopped up as bad.
there. Correct.
So that,
Right now it goes 60 and then it goes 70 and then it goes and it comes back down.
It's on 935 between the river and Highway 9,
Yes, that would affect us, correct.
and technically that's in Newcastle city limits,
We don't respond out there, no, it's not actually Newcastle.
but it abuts our.
Right.
I make a motion for agenda item number 17.
Second.
Motion second for approval of item number 17.
Yes.
Yes. Recommend discussion of possible action to approve the meeting dates for calendar year 2020.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second for approval of item number 18 and 10.
Yes.
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 Yes. Item number 19, city manager's comments.
One, I do have this one. I am currently soliciting for a municipal attorney. Sent out an invitation today to Chris here and Greg Dixon and another gentleman that is interested. But I've also sent out basically a job description to Association of Municipal Attorneys and asked for letters of interest and resumes also. So I'm hoping that I will be able to have at least 3 selected and brought before council. It's probably going to be January before that happens, just because of all the holiday time and everything else.
With the same capacity, it's just, it's contracted, not like here full time. Like, it's the same thing, it's just as bad, right?
Correct. Yeah, and ordinance requires us to do a contractual agreement. Not that they can't be in this, but.
Right.
But yes. That's all.
Item number 20, council member comments. I'd like to say, item number 21 is adjournment.
Make a motion?
Second.
Motion second for adjournment, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You're adjourned. Thank you very much.